Greetings and welcome to the Libra edition of Kathleen's Kaleidoscope. Libra always begins with the moment of the fall equinox, which this year occurs on September 23rd. Now there are two equinoxes a year. One occurs in the spring when we come to the first degree of Aries, and one in the fall for the first degree of Libra. And the moment of these equinoxes are very special because this is the time of the two moments each year when just for that time, day and night are of equal length. In the spring, of course, days then begin to get longer until the summer solstice, and now the news is not quite so good. They begin to get shorter until the winter solstice, which brings the longest night of all. But this is the message of the equinox. It gives you that moment to kind of catch your breath and say, okay, what am I doing? What have I been doing all summer? What's going on now? What are my plans for the fall? What am I going to do to take myself through the winter? So the equinox is always a time of planning, it's a time of preparation, and it's a time of thoughtfulness, which works well because Libra is an air sign, and air signs are signs of thought. Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. It is a cardinal sign, having that in common with Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. Cardinal meaning wanting to be in motion. Libras, like Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn, are only going to sit so long and wait for something to happen, then they're going to get out there and stir up the pot. Although Libra is by far the most patient of the four. Perhaps because your key word is balance, and so you're always waiting for that just right moment. But I'll tell you something, Libra, especially if you should be one of those Libras who's a Libra with Libra rising. You can wait forever for the right moment, and sometimes you have to create that moment yourself. So the balance comes, and it comes from within. You have to make that happen. Now, one of the interesting things about the equinox this year, which I want to mention, and let me just grab that equinox wheel, is that, of course, the equinox always begins with 0 degrees of Libra, but this year Libra is also the rising sign, for the equinox occurs at 8:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The Sun is in Libra, Venus is in Libra, Mercury is retrograde in Libra, and in addition, the North Node is in Libra. So this is I know I've spoken about the nodes before, but I'll mention them again. The nodes are not so much used in Western astrology, although they are becoming more popular, especially thanks to the emphasis on them by Dane Rudyard. But they're very much used in Jyotish astrology or Eastern astrology because the nodes are the nodes of the moon. The North Node indicates the path of destiny in the life, and the South Node indicates experiences which we may have already had, either in other lifetimes or just in the matter of which that which doesn't need to be explored. I mean, like when I'm doing a reading for someone, wherever the South Node is usually experiences you've already had. You don't, when you follow the path of the South Node, you're taking the line of least resistance. When you follow the path of the North Node, you're striking out into new areas and creating new adventures for yourself. So the fact that we have, okay, Libra, Sun in the 12th house, Libra rising. Right away we know that more so than usual, this equinox, this year, is a time when balancing is important. And I have to say, looking around not only my own life, but lives of many of the people I know, everyone seems to be at some point of crisis, small or large, but there are things going on that need balancing. Excuse me, I haven't gotten rid of this cough yet. Speaking of something that needs balancing. So, the fact that Libra is also the ascendant says pay more attention than usual to that which might be out of balance or out of sync in your life. The fact that the North Node is also here says pay attention again, and let's underline the pay attention. There are some major lessons to be learned here, not just for those of you born in the sign of Libra, but for all of us wherever Libra may fall in the chart. Now, if you're a Virgo, that means it has to do with financial matters. If you're a Scorpio, Libra rules your solar 12th house. What's going on now over the next couple weeks has kind of a karmic intonation to it, indicating that there's some heavy inner stuff going on. If you're a Sagittarius, your ideals are being adjusted in some way, or maybe you need to take another look at some of your friendships. If you're a Capricorn, there are things going on around your career. You may, in fact, be making a complete change in career before the next month or two are over. So be willing to look at what's going on there. Aquarians have to revise plans, or you may suddenly decide, for instance, if you've been thinking about going back to school, taking up something new, or perhaps finishing an education that you had to let go of earlier on, this is the time to do it. This is the time to see how far you can fling your thoughts and plans. Pisceans, Libra rules your 8th house, which is one of the inner houses. Be willing to dig within and see what needs healing, and be willing to put some effort toward that healing. Aries, of course, Libra is your opposite sign, so it rules your solar house of marriage. So for Aries, look at your partnerships. See what lessons, where are things out of balance? How can they be brought into better balance? Create better interaction and communication with your partner. Taurus, this Libra rules your house of health. So you need to perhaps take a different attitude toward your health. Again, I know I keep saying the word balance, but that is truly the key word for Libra, is balance, balance, balance. So you need to bring some health matters into balance. Or maybe it's a matter of your self-image. Perhaps it needs a better polish. Geminis. Well, you're the ones that will probably enjoy this the most, because Libra rules your solar house of romance and creativity. And all of this emphasis there could revitalize an old romance, bring a new one into your life, whatever. Your feelings are definitely going to be flying about quite a bit. And when you consider that Mercury goes retrograde on Friday, it may tip your life quite topsy-turvy, but most Geminis enjoy that. If you're a Cancer, all this Libra energy is affecting your home. So it might be a good idea to see what's going on at home. Is there an energy that's out of balance there? What can you do to make things work better for you? Leos will find that this energy encourages you to communicate better. You may want to, if you're in the process of moving, or even if you're not, even if you've been moved a while, you may feel like you want to be more settled where you are, maybe meet new people. All that kind of activity is very much encouraged by this equinox activity. And last of all, if you're a Virgo, well, as I mentioned, Libra rules your house of money, but also energy, because money is only crystallized energy. So you'll find that your energy patterns are changing. You may decide to do things a different way. You may bring a new rhythm into your life. All that is very well, because this is what Libra is all about. Now, as I mentioned in the chart of the fall of the equinox, Venus is in Libra, and Venus rules Libra. And Venus is in its own sign at this time, which is very helpful. And because Libra is the ascendant, it also rules the chart. But here's the catch. All this Libra energy, Venus is open-hearted and whatever, but in the chart of the fall equinox, Venus is in the 12th house. Now, when you're doing the chart of a person, and the chart ruler is in the 12th house, you usually show somebody who's kind of a late bloomer. You know, it's not so easy to get your energy forth. You're a person who has to get everything worked out in great detail before you can bring it out and express it to the world. And seeing it represented in this equinox chart, it makes me think that although there's a tremendous amount of energy here, it may not be happening as quickly as you would like. If these balance, this change, these new rhythms, whatever, if you're working on them and you don't see something coming to pass, remember two things. The day before the sun goes into Libra, on the 23rd, Mercury turns retrograde in Libra. That's number one. That slows everything down and puts a damper on it. But number two, with Venus in the 12th, it's very important before you go into action that you have a plan. Now, if you are born into the sign of Libra, don't use this as an excuse for equivocation and avoiding decisions. In fact, there was a whole piece in the paper in the last couple days, I think it was the Sunday paper, about wafflers, which I found very interesting. Because if there's ever a word that fits Libra, it's waffling. You know, your sign is the scales. That's your symbol. You want to be so sure that you've looked at everything from this point of view and from that point of view. And did you think about how not only it's going to affect you, but how it's going to affect other people? And then you can stop and think about it all over again. And before you know it, you know what? You'll have gone through your whole life and never made a decision. And that can be very dangerous. So if there's one piece of advice for Libras, with all this Libra energy in the equinox, if there are decisions to be made, don't hesitate and don't waffle. Venus is in Libra. Follow your heart. Look at the things that you want to accomplish. Above all, look at, because the North Node is there, look at your dreams and look at your ultimate destiny and see what you can do over the next 30 days to get yourself closer to it. I can guarantee you that you will make definite steps toward your goals, and that will be very rewarding. Now I'm going to talk about some more about Libra after I do the interview. But Libra rules beauty. It rules balance, it rules image, it rules all sorts of things. And so I thought, especially since the Miss America pageant was just last week, that for a guest, I'm bringing on Patty Papineau, who has the great distinction of being one of 2 women in the world to have been Miss Vermont twice. Once in 1970 in the Miss Vermont USA pageant, Miss America pageant, and 2 years later, Miss Vermont for Miss World. In addition, she's featured in Who's Who in Pageants, Who's Who in American Women. She has been a producer, choreographer, and executive director for the Miss America competition, and a national talent and pageant judge. So I'd say if there's anybody who knows about beauty and balance, hey, and image, here we are. Welcome, Patty. It's nice to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm just happy to be back in Vermont and having you invite me on the show, Kathleen.
Yes, well, I understand you've lived all over the place, but you started out in Rutland and now you're here in Middlebury, right?
That's right. I am. I'm back to my beloved Vermont, and it's wonderful.
Good, good. Well, we're happy to have you back here. With all the stuff that's going on about the pageants these days, I just think it's terrific to be able to talk to somebody who has firsthand knowledge. How did you feel about it? Were you scared? Was it something you always wanted to do?
Well, it was my dream. Since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, I would sit, even at that young age, with a notebook and write down what talent, what the gown was like of every winner. So by the time I was a teenager, I had compiled volumes of what a winner is about in my own mind as a little girl. And I was like millions of other little girls would see that Miss America walk down that tremendous runway in Atlantic City and think, if I could only be there. So it was always my goal, and I even selected attending Green Mountain College so that I could become Miss Vermont. And then when I went to Green Mountain College, to my disappointment, they didn't have a preliminary, which you must have in Miss America pageant. You can't just enter the pageant at the state level. No. You have to win a local pageant or what's called a preliminary. So I didn't know what to do, so I called up Atlantic City and said, I'd like to become Miss Vermont, but there's no preliminary here at Green Mountain College. What can you do for me?
And what did they do for you?
Well, they created a Miss Green Mountain College pageant.
Terrific.
They had a whole pageant. I was lucky and won.
And you won?
That's right.
And then you were able to compete?
Yes, I went up to Memorial Auditorium in Burlington about 3 weeks later. And
how many competitors?
I think there was about 12 of us then.
Right. And then on to Atlantic City.
Yes, that was in April, and then several months later down to Atlantic City. And that was the year that Phyllis George won. And we all know Phyllis George today. Right,
that's right. Yes, it's true. Many Miss Americas go on to have very successful careers in advertising or theater or TV, whatever. So off you go to Atlantic City. Was this by yourself? Was your mother with you? Did you have friends with you, or were you on your own?
Well, none of the above.
Okay.
What happens in the Miss America pageant is when you get to go to Atlantic City, someone is appointed from the state that you represent to be like your companion, a traveling companion, because you're never alone.
Right.
The rules and regulations during your year's reign in Miss America pageant are very strict and stringent. So you go to Atlantic City, then you are appointed a woman in Atlantic City who's also a local chaperone. So you're always with someone. And then you have a car and a driver. And people have used to say to me, oh, isn't that wonderful? You're going to Atlantic City or you've been to Miss America. What a nice vacation. It is not a vacation. You work very hard. They have you up at the crack of dawn. You have to look great. You go to the hotel and have breakfast. You rehearse, do interviews all day long. And then that week before, as they talk about on TV, but I think the average American who watches the pageant for 2 hours Saturday night doesn't realize that that's just a 2-hour televised show. That those competitions have been going on all that week. Right.
To get them to that point.
10. Right, because everybody does their talent. You're divided into two different groups, A and B. One does talent, and then one does evening and swimsuit. So
now, of course, when you were competing, the swimsuit competition was naturally part of it, and I noticed that this time in the show they had people calling in and voting, and they voted 4-1 to keep the swimsuits in.
I noticed that.
How did you feel about it? You didn't feel bad about the swimsuits, did you?
Not at all.
No.
I mean, if you're going to be in that kind of a pageant, you're going to take onto a pageant and in that world.
Right.
That's a part of it. And what I say to anybody, because back then we had the bra burners and everything, that 68, 69, 70 was very women's lib then.
Right.
And they were getting into the auditorium and really causing a big commotion in Atlantic City. If it's not your cup of tea,
Don't do
alone.
it. That's right. Don't do it. But if this is what you want to be part of, and the beauty business, which is a tremendous business, and I see from what you told me at the beginning of the show that your involvement with the Miss America pageant didn't stop with your Miss America competition. You've gone on to do other things and to continue. How long were you involved with the pageants?
Well, I was Miss Vermont in 1970. Then in 71, the next girl who became Miss Vermont preferred to work full-time and keep her job, and she really wasn't available, and I understand didn't really want to make a lot of appearances, so the pageant came to me and said, would you do some appearances on behalf of her? So I said, sure. Then the next year I had an opportunity to enter the Miss World Vermont pageant, so I did, and that's a whole different ballgame, and I think that's something else that people don't realize, that the Miss America pageant, the Miss USA, and the Miss World are completely separate entities.
They are. Okay.
And how they score, what kind of winner they're looking for is completely different and separate.
Huh.
And I was fortunate where I went on and became Miss Vermont World, went on to the Miss World pageant, and of course the winner there was Linda Carter. And the next year or so she became Wonder Woman.
That's some pretty intense competition.
So that was intense, yes.
Where was the Miss World pageant held?
It was held in Virginia that year. And there I was able to meet Bob Hope and started a friendship there, and I did many shows with Bob Hope throughout the years. Miss America pageant, you become a sisterhood.
Interesting.
And there's 80,000 girls every year in the United States that try to get to become one of the 50 to go to Atlantic City. So it's kind of an exclusive little club in some ways.
Of course
some people
it is.
feel. And for those of us who wish to continue on, and I had my talent. I was a professional ballerina.
Right,
so
that was your talent, was ballet.
Yes, was ballet. And so I've been lucky all these years to be a talent judge and in many pageants.
Right.
And, choreograph and produce and executive director in all levels. And board of directors, New York State Board of
Even though you're not born in the sign of Libra, I've been talking a lot so far about the need for balance. And I know that you were very successful teaching ballet and performing, and then you had a tragic accident and couldn't dance again, right?
That's true.
How did you, because I think all of us face tragedy in some way, maybe not as overtly as you did, to have your professional life suddenly come to a halt. How did you come to terms with that?
Well, it's not easy, but as you say, life brings changes upon us, and either we continue forth or we don't. Right. And I'm a person who believes in a simple thing. There's no such word as can't. And even as I taught little 4-year-old girls, I say, Miss Patty, I can't do that. I said, there's no such word as can't. Right. And I'd say to the moms, even if they only learn one dance step, or they learn grace, or they learn appreciation for music, please let them leave with the words, there's no such word as can't.
Right. I could do something.
You can. You set another goal. You set goals, you strive for those goals, and you try to attain those goals. So you make shifts, and that's what I did.
Right.
And I had a little 9-month-old baby when I had my car accident, so there I was. I had a successful business. I had 35 employees in a dance center, and overnight I lost everything. So all of a sudden it was, well, we have to start again.
Yes.
And you do.
Now, do you continue to teach dance?
No, I don't.
Right.
But I do a lot of judging and pageants.
Right.
I have girls who always call me and say, will you help me with a pageant?
Yes.
And I'll say, well, when is your pageant? Well, Saturday night.
Right.
Or in 2 weeks. I think people don't realize that these girls, it's a focus, and it's many years of discipline. And I'm sure that the discipline that I had as a dancer and through the pageants, it helped me to get through, I know for
those
sure,
difficult
to get
times.
through the difficult times.
Now, what do you feel, as you said, when you were appearing in the pageants, it was the late 60s and early 70s and the bra burning and the heavy women's lib, and of course now we hear a lot about how sexist the pageants are and their impact, and it's not right. But just in knowing you and talking to you, I can see that there's a lot more to the beauty pageants than beauty. And I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Well, I think you said it in a nutshell.
Right.
It's years of discipline and work and building character and integrity in a person. And I think those are the qualities that carry you through life.
Did you find for the most part that the other girls that you met at the pageant were really nice people? People that you would want to be friends with? Have you made some lasting friendships?
Oh, I've made many. I mean, I still keep in touch with many of the girls. Mary Hart, I also competed with. Her name was Mary Harem in the Miss America pageant when I competed. But yes, you do. I mean, to get down to 50 from 80,000,
yes,
it's not easy. So you don't get that nitty-gritty, terrible, competitive viciousness that some people think is attached with pageants when you get to that level.
Right.
They're just lovely, terrific gals. They're all college-educated, college-bound.
They're all attractive, they're all talented.
But yes, they have talent. And I think that's an important thing, too. If you look at the talent on Sunday, or last Saturday,
there were some fabulous voices.
These girls are ready for opera companies.
Yes, yeah. There was.
And you think, well, my heavens, they're only 22 years old.
Right.
And they've already got their masters.
Yes. So this is not, the beauty pageants are not for someone who's lacking in brains and talent, that's for sure.
I don't think so. And I think, you need to, if you set a focus and you want a talent and a goal, and you set your sights and go for it, whether it be football or swimming or pageants or ballet or whatever.
Right. It's all the same stuff.
And an interesting factor is proven that kids who have a hobby that they become excel in as teenagers are not kids who are delinquents. No. If they're rehearsing for the symphony orchestra or rehearsing for the church choir
or in
the
a
local
play
ballet
or
company
writing
or the
something
play, that's right. There isn't the time and the energy to be a delinquent.
Because they're putting it in other places.
Yes. More appropriate, healthier places and safer places.
So I would say that you are someone who would support ongoing pageants. I mean, I have to say, to be truthful and say that sometimes I look at, Little Miss America or something, and I think, God, when you become Little Miss America at 5 years old, where do you go from there? On to other pageants, or is life just a big downhill slide after that, Well,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've judged a lot of pageants, little kiddie pageants, they're sometimes called, although I don't relish that name. But I think that everything has to be done in moderation, and oftentimes I have seen mothers push little girls in pageants, but I've also seen them their kids on the soccer team or the field hockey or ice hockey. I think you can find that in any field and area, but you have to do it in moderation, and it has to be done carefully.
With an understanding that this is not all there is.
That's right. And there also comes a time when the little girl, in this case in beauty pageant, is going to say, I don't want to do it. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like it. Okay, then we do something else. If they're interested, try it exposed. If they're interested in flute lessons, try the flute lessons.
But be a wise enough parent to see that if your child really isn't having a good time doing this, not to insist that they do it for your own gratification.
But there's a catch.
Yes.
And the catch is, don't let your child quit the minute they say, I don't want to do it, I don't like it. Because I think you find that a lot.
So you have to be wise.
Yes. Something very smart my mother always did. I am also an organist and a pianist, but I never really was crazy about doing it, so I don't talk about it and I don't do it. And it's sort of my hidden talent. But something I would always say, I really don't want to take the lessons. And my mother would say, well, you know what? This is October. Before you know it, Christmas and Christmas holidays will be here, and half the year is gone. And, well, it didn't sound so bad then. And then I start in January, February, and say, I'm just not too crazy about the organ. I'd rather dance more. But you know what? You stop the lessons in May, and Easter's almost here. It'll be over. And if you don't want to do it in next year or at the end of this year, then fine. But if you can break it down in increments, sometimes a child can understand that, and it doesn't look like, oh, I've got to do the whole year and it's forever. But give them enough exposure of something so that they're not going to quit when it starts to become difficult, and when they really start to get into it, then sometimes kids can get bored, which is normal. The fun wears off.
Well, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I would think that the kind of experience that you have gained by being in pageants and whatever, just, from listening to you, are good for everything. I mean, I would think that, you would have a lot of, maybe you should get together and start doing a TV show here at Middlebury TV, because I'm just thinking, listening to you, of all the helpful tips that you could have. Good grooming, Lord knows, most every teenager around these days could use some of that. I see nothing wrong with being rebellious or having pink hair if you want to, but comb it. Don't just have it hang there. Have it be pink, green, nice. Purple, whatever. But there's nothing wrong with looking nice. I mean, it's one of the things I've always taught my daughter, Samantha. There's nothing wrong with having your clothes match.
This is true. If you're going to wear them, why not match them?
Right, why not have them match? When you see some kids coming out in purple plaid this and green polka dot this, and the socks don't match and the shoe, there's nothing wrong with having clothes that match. And if you can only afford one pair of shoes, make them black or white so they go with everything,
That's right.
I mean, my mother was not, well, she was a pageant. My adopted mother was a fashion model, and she was Miss Boston one year, and she was Miss Annapolis and whatever. And she didn't go into the world of pageants, but she was a very beautiful woman who was in the modeling world for several years, and she always taught me that, there's nothing wrong with having your sweater and your socks match and your headband and good grooming. And it's something I've always been very conscious of, especially since I've been overweight most of my life. Just because you're overweight doesn't mean you have to go around in a sweatshirt and droopy blue jeans. You can wear clothes that fit. You can wear clothes that coordinate. You can always put in a good appearance and be well groomed. But I think that, again, Libra, its key is beauty, but the underlying word is balance. So we're talking about good grooming on the outside, but also you're also emphasizing the need for building character and good grooming on the inside. And I would think that if you can bring the two of them together, it makes you a winner. No wonder you've been able to, pull yourself together after having had something happen where, like you said there, you had 35 employees in a dance school and everything, and it all fell apart. So what are you doing yourself with these days?
Well, I want to backtrack for a second, because you're so right. You talk about Libra and balance. The balance in life is God makes us male or female. Take what God has given you and make the very best.
Yes.
On the inside and the outside. So we can become a total human being. And that includes things like character and integrity, and kindness and decency as a human being, and a good soul. And then and as you say, make yourself look better. There's no reason in the world why every woman can't look her best. Today you can go in any supermarket or any pharmacy and find inexpensive products right away. Soap, deodorant, shampoos, lipstick. Most women wear some kind of cosmetic.
Right.
Why not wear the best lipstick to make you look the best?
Mm-hmm. The color that's right
for you. So that's balance. That's right. It's balance in the human being, and it's balance for the sign of Libra.
Have you ever thought of doing beauty consulting work? Or you probably already have.
Well, I do lots of that with girls who want to enter pageants.
Right.
And I've had a lot of girls become national winners.
Right.
It takes a know-how, and it's years of training. I had to learn it too. When I became Miss Vermont, there was nobody to teach me. And I was only 18. I was just a little babe out of school, And you learn it over years and years of time and training and traveling. I've traveled all over the world. You learn these things.
Right. So are you going to be doing any beauty consulting or anything like that in Middlebury? I mean, do you have plans to do something in the future?
Well, I'd like to do something in that, and I certainly would love to do a talk show on beauty and health and what's going on in Vermont, what's going on in Middlebury, and
it's something to think about, because Middlebury is a terrific town. You've got the college here.
Yes.
You've got lots of beautiful young girls there. But you also have, because as I said, in talking to you, I see that you have such a firm grip on the fact that beauty can be created. Yes, you're born looking one way or the other, but you can also create something for yourself. And again, I say that with everyone, no matter what size you are, no matter how old or young you are. You can create an image for yourself that is so you that everyone responds to the image. And they don't notice if your hair is gray or if you're overweight or underweight. They see the image that you create. And there's nothing false about that, because that is you. I remember reading a long time ago when I first started studying astrology, one of Sidney Omar's books. And he was speaking specifically about people with the moon in Leo, which I have. Mm-hmm. But it applies to Leos as well. And he said, one of the keys to the moon in Leo is that you always want to be the best and noble and so forth. And 90% of the time, you're already there before you even realize it, because you set your sights so high. but that the image is real. You would look at someone and say, oh, I'd like to be like that person, and not even realizing that you already are. And I think it's the same with beauty as well.
Well, you know what it is and all, it's a whole package deal. And it's a woman of class.
Right.
The package is all there. Or lots of times I explain it to little girls or in classrooms as a pie. We're all a pie. Every human being on the face of this earth is a pie.
Right.
And each section of that pie is a part of our life. Our family, our home, our work, our recreation, our friends. And if you can put that whole pie together and you can do and present it well, and especially for females, it's a woman of class.
Right.
And it makes no difference in your weight. It's how you present yourself.
Yes.
The whole package.
And a lot of that comes from how you feel about yourself on the inside.
I think so.
Yeah. Because people, I mean, let's face it, one of the reasons that people are in psychiatrist's office or therapist's office or friends or whatever is lack of self-esteem. I see it all the time with people that come to me for readings. And a person who you'd look at sometime who is so attractive or so nice or so smart, you say, how could this person be lacking in self-esteem? They look like $1 million. And yet there they are, terrified that they're going to lose the person they love, whatever, because of that. So to be able to feel confident and beautiful from the inside out.
Yes, confidence, I think, is self-esteem and self-awareness. You charge ahead and you can achieve those goals.
Oh, there you are. Well, for all those of you who have been looking for a way to come into better balance with your inner and outer beauty, I would say that Patty has given us some good words of advice. It was very nice of you to be here as a guest, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the Middlebury area next. And it was interesting what you said about the pie, because, of course, the horoscope wheel is divided into 12 pie-shaped shapes. Pieces, and it would be interesting to sit down and talk one day and see how we can match up all those different things. I mean, like Cancer rules the home, and the 10th house rules friends, how we can match them up with
Well, will you be my guest, my first guest, if we have a show?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. All right. Now, I have, much to my amazement, no books to review. I don't know what's going on. If there were not many books being sent out or what. I mean, I think I got one in the mail, but I've been away a bit over the past few weeks too, and also still fighting this cough that I had on the Virgo show is still with me. But instead, what I'm going to do is talk a bit about Libra and all the different components about Libra, and I'm going to use as a reference an old copy of Aquarian Voices, my old publication, only because it gives us some of the information we're looking for. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is I had a wonderful woman named Geraldine Thorsten writing for me, who has written God Herself and the Goddess in Your Stars, and she's very much involved with goddess research. And I wanted to mention some of the things that she speaks about when Libra was named for the great goddess Libera, Libera, referring to freedom, and also her priestesses were renowned as astrologers and prophets. And in the beginning, like now, we think of justice as being blindfolded as she holds the scales. And it says in the beginning, Libra was not blindfolded. Instead, she was addressed as she of the all-seeing eye. And the scales represented the balance of karmic law. If we were unkind and disobeyed the laws of the goddess, our souls shriveled and we earned the just deserts of our meanness. And if we were kind to others, we earned a happy rebirth. And what were the laws of the goddess? Many of them are familiar to us from the Ten Commandments. But they extended beyond our relationships with other human beings, and particularly, we were called to account for our treatment of children. So the names that come from Libera, liberality, liberty, the Liberalia, which was a festival honoring the goddess, during which time slaves were granted a period of freedom and could behave as if they were masters. And I imagine when that went on, some of the masters probably wished they'd been a little nicer to them. Another quality was, and this I find most interesting and is one of the things I really wanted to emphasize here, was the ancient goddess of Libra was her ability to transform spirit into matter and vice versa. And this is some of the same things that we've been talking about in my interview with Patty and also earlier in the show. That ability to come into balance. And here it's between spirit and matter, between the inner self and the outer self. And her transformative powers were showed by the tree. People saw trees as feminine, their roots reaching deep into Mother Earth, and their branches reach for the Moon Mother and the realm of air and spirit. Their bodies are a maternal bridge linking all the elements of nature to one another and to us, which is why so many people use trees in their ceremonies, whether it was the brightly ribboned maypole or the tree that we decorate in winter. So the voice of the goddess sings to us in Libra of the harmony we must restore. She calls us to account, and let us pray that we listen to her. So that's thinking about the goddess that's connected with Libra. Then I want to look at the tarot card, because each sign has a tarot card that is specifically connected to it. And Libra's, of course, to no one's surprise, is Justice, with the blindfolded goddess with her scales. Therefore, it represents impartiality and unbiased judgment. However, truth is the truth and is more clearly seen with the eyes of wisdom and knowledge. The sign of Libra desires harmony, beauty, balance, justice, and equilibrium at all costs, in all things, simultaneously, which is why Librans are often, it's a sign of diplomats and politicians, and just not always truth tellers, are they? But they certainly know how to make people get along. The Mary Poppins advice, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, is a very Libran attitude. You know, let's do what we have to do, but let's make it nice in the process. I can remember being so amused to discover that both Oliver North and Fawn Hall were Libras, because it's, you know, well, we'll just cover it up and everything will be fine. I always think of Libras as being, as long as the bed looks neat, it doesn't matter that there are crumbs in it, as long as no one can see them. Librans feel that diplomacy preserves harmony. So the Justice card points the way to the principles of negotiation and truth. And here is another thought that comes from the Justice card in the Tarot, which is that life grows from darkness into the light of day. All things work for good, and justice prevails. So this is another part of the understanding of Libra that helps us to come through. Now, when we look at Astromythology, which is a piece that Kelly Hunter, and the Tarot pieces were written by Renee Anderson, who lives in California. And Kelly Hunter is up in Montpelier and a very well-known astrologer nationally. And she speaks about the relationship between Libra and the goddess Mat, the goddess of wisdom in Egypt, who held a set of scales. On one side, she put the feather of truth, and on the other side, the soul is laid and weighed against the feather. If the scales tip, the soul is devoured by a waiting beast, and if it balances, you come again into incarnation. So if you're born into the sign of Libra, you seek balance in your life, and wherever Libra is in your chart is the place where you will seek balance. And of course, that is determined by knowing your time of birth and finding out your rising sign and actually getting a chart done. But wherever Libra appears in your life, that is where you need to find the most balance. Of course, it's in the realm of personal relationships that Libras feel it most easily, for they weigh the give and take of relationships very carefully. So whether you are a Libra, oops, I think I just not so good. I can fix that. Whether you are a Libra, or more importantly, if you are in love with a Libra, remember what I said about waffling, remember what I said about making decisions, and remember this, that the give and take of relationships is the most difficult. Many Librans sacrifice their own devices, their own desires on the altar of a relationship, thinking that it's most important to preserve the relationship even if you're not happy in it, but that everything must be sacrificed for it. So I have to say to you, if you are a Libra, look at your relationship. If it's not what you want, be willing to either change it or find another one. And if you're in love with a Libra, be patient and wait for them to make up their mind. And nudge them now and then too, because sometimes if you wait for them to make up their mind, you'll be waiting a long time. Another thing that I wanted to look at, while I think of it, I did mention that Libra was ruled by Venus, but I wanted to just differentiate for a moment. There's a great difference between Venus as it appears in Libra and Venus as it appears in Taurus. Venus in Taurus is much more of a fertility goddess, much more Ishtar. And Venus in Libra is much more Aphrodite, rising from the foam. And Librans sometimes have a hard time, because it is the sign of relationships, they sometimes have a hard time looking deep into themselves. It's a lot of times easier for you to look in the mirror that your friends and relatives hold up to you than to actually look within. So a lot of Librans are very dependent on other people's opinions. And if there's one thing that perhaps you might want to think of changing, it's that learn to rely on your own opinion of yourself and not depend on everyone else to show you who you are. That's something you have to know. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the numbers that go with Libra. Libra is the 7th sign, and the number 7 complies numerologically, because 7 is a complex mass of contradictions, which can be the case with Libra. 7 thrives on analysis, and Libra does like to find out. In fact, Libra likes to feel kind of detached, if possible. Even though they're ruled by Venus, they don't want to get carried away by their passions. And so the number 7 is kind of a safety zone. And the number 2 is also connected with Libra. 2, which is either going to lose itself in you and me and put the partnership ahead, or find that balance that goes back and forth within the self. So between 7 and 2, there's a lot of, well, I guess what Libra's all about, which is that back and forth. I mean, the light, when you read esoteric astrology, it describes the light of Libra as the light that moves to rest. It's always oscillating just a little tiny bit, trying to find that point of perfect balance, and just as soon as it's achieved, it seems like it tips one way or the other, and so it has to oscillate some more. In the body, Libra rules the kidneys, and so this is the area perhaps needing the most support. So Librans should always drink plenty of water. Black cherries are very good for preventing the danger of kidney stone, black cherry and black cherry juice. Cranberries in their juice, of course, also benefit the kidneys. And if you don't want to drink cranberry juice, they have cranberry capsules at health food stores. And so this is where Libra really needs to take care. Also, the lower back is sometimes a problem for Libra, perhaps because many Librans are long-bodied and sometimes have a little too much stretch in there. And last but not least, I want to mention the crystal for this sign, which is watermelon tourmaline. What a nice balance. And this is according to Grover Cleveland, who is a healer working with crystals in Burlington. She and her husband Frank have a practice together. He does massage and she does crystal healing, and very successfully too. And she puts this beautifully, if I can quote from her article. Soft pink core encased in brilliant green rind, watermelon tourmaline most intimately expresses the nature of Libra, the I that is we. Heart-centered, this precious gem provides balance on many levels, reflecting both the inner relationship with the self and the outer relationship with the other. Internally, watermelon tourmaline balances personal love with spiritual love. The inner core represents the pink ray of divine love, while the rind represents the green ray of universal healing. Reminding us of the yin-yang symbol, this gem contains with it the polar opposites, the masculine and feminine archetypes. Through the energy of this bicolored tourmaline, we can, in Libra fashion, experience and balance our masculine and feminine selves, ultimately finding union and wholeness within. Externally, watermelon tourmaline echoes the Lover's card of the Tarot, which, although the Lovers actually rule Gemini, because Gemini's an air sign, they have some connection here, balancing romantic love with unconditional love. Even as Libras tend to view life in terms of relationships, this stone embodies the possibility of the balanced and aligned relationship with another. Librans seek equilibrium between wary aloofness and dispassion to protect the heart and total loss of self to the other. And watermelon tourmaline finds a way to encompass both one's wholeness and the other. Neither is denied and neither is absorbed. Libras are unusual among the air signs in the value they place on emotions rather than on pure logic and reason. Like the Tarot Justice card, watermelon tourmaline symbolizes the judicious weighing of truth in the heart. It's a helpful stone for those who have become overly airy or mental. For all of us who wish to experience the Libran ideal of an aligned and harmonious relationship both to ourselves and our mates, watermelon tourmaline serves as the quintessential balancing scale of the heart. And that's what I have to say about Libra. It's quite a remarkable sign. It is, because it is a gateway sign, just as Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and the first 6 houses, which are on the underside of the chart, are more involved with self, with personal, with growth and evolution. Libra is the first of the second 6 houses. So it's a pivotal point. It's the natural ruler of the 7th house, where then the houses begin to ascend toward the zenith and back down to the first house. So Libra is the beginning of extending ourselves out into the world. In this sign, we make first contact with others. Because as we have come, Aries through Virgo, we have come through matter, through action in Aries, matter in Taurus, thought in Gemini, emotion in Cancer, bringing in the element of the heart in Leo, and in Virgo, putting it all together to create the perfect person. Virgos listening, don't let your heads get too swelled. Remember, Mercury's going retrograde and you can make mistakes. Uh-oh, the earphones just swelled off Scott's head. But Virgo is a sign of perfection. Now that those first 6 have said, okay, I have achieved, or at least am striving for perfection within myself, Libra opens the door for that growth in my relationships with others, so that first, in the sign of Libra, which is partnerships, first with another human being, my chosen significant other, and then to the 8th, to relationship with self, and then with spirit, and then with the public at large, and friends, and so forth, and back around to the 1st. So Libra is a very important sign, just as Cancer and Capricorn represents the gates of initiation on the spiritual side. Aries and Libra represent the gates of awakening of relationships. And while I think of it, I would like to show the Libra painting. So that was taken from Aquarian Voices. And the Libra one is very beautiful. The saying is, I choose the way that lies between the 2 great lines of force. And there it is. The goddess stands with the sun in one hand and the moon in the other. And as you see, the lovers are echoed between the trees, and the partnership, because that's what Libra is all about, the balance and the partnership. Libras like to be married. Libras like to be in a relationship. When a Libra gets widowed or divorced or whatever, they want to be in a relationship. They don't want to go through life by themselves. So let's look and see what's happening over the next while. I got my cheat sheet here. On the 23rd of September, which is Saturday, at 8:14 a.m., the sun moves into Libra. The next day, Sunday, September 24th, is the new moon in Libra. However, before that happens, Friday, the 22nd, at 4:13 a.m., Mercury in Libra goes retrograde. Now, this happens 3 times a year, which means that since this is my 3rd year of doing the show, we've talked about this at least 8 or 9 times. But because Mercury retrograde tends to make you forgetful, I'll just mention it one more time. This ushers in that period, which this year lasts till October 13th, when it's really easy to lose things, not get the person you want to talk to, leave a message on the wrong machine. So if you're about to leave an angry message, make sure that your voice on the other end sounds familiar. It's easy to just have things go wrong. The toaster blows up, but not big stuff, little stuff. The toaster blows up, the microwave turns your dinner into a bubbling mass of who knows what. But most of all, communications. Don't take it for granted that your message has been received. If you've called someone, sent them a letter, whatever, and you don't hear from them, pick up the phone and say, hi, I sent you a letter last week. Did you get it? And when they say, no, or my answering machine wasn't working, don't be surprised. Just be glad that you made that call. However, the other astrological news is as follows, and there's some big stuff coming. On the morning of October 4th, or rather the evening of October 4th, Neptune, which has been retrograde since April, goes direct. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces and is in the 3rd decadent of Capricorn. Uranus, which has been retrograde since the end of April, goes direct on October 6th. Now, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, had tiptoed into Aquarius this year, and then danced back into Capricorn, and will be in Capricorn through the remainder of this year, but will be entering Aquarius for good, or at least for the next 7 years, in mid-January. On October 10th, Venus dances out of Libra into Scorpio. On October 13th, as I mentioned, Mercury goes direct. And on October 20th, Mars enters Sagittarius. The full moon in Aries and Libra is on October 8th, which is also a Sunday, and I will mention, excuse me, along with that the meditation for the new moon in Libra will be on Sunday, September 24th, and for the full moon in Aries and Virgo on Sunday, October 8th. They will, at this point, continue to be held at 28 Conant Square in Brandon at 7:30 p.m., although that will be changing at some point because Greg and Wendy are moving, and we'll be having it at the new place. Over the next few weeks, the most positive days are September 24th and 30th, October 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th, 15th, and 19th. Days to be careful are September 29th, October 3rd, 7th, 16th, and 20th. And this is just generally speaking for all signs. Those are days when transit to transit, the planets, if you listen to my star tips or whatever, you'll be hearing me go, oh, not such a good day today, or hey, today's the day to do it. Also, just want to mention again, because it is important, that we have 2 new moons in Scorpio coming this year, the first of which will be on October 23rd. So, Scorpio, wherever Scorpio is in your chart, remember there's some important stuff coming. Now, since a new Ever-Changing did just come out, I'd like to just quickly look through it and see if there's some good stuff going on that we might like to be part of. Of course, do you think I was clever enough to keep my place? No. Here we are. At the end of September still, there are Reiki classes at the Lightgate Center in Thetford, number 802-785-4226, and also at Zenith Alternatives in Randolph, 728-3730. Those are both Reiki classes. The 23rd and 24th, the annual Vermont Massage Conference Retreat, which is at the Cooper Hill Lodge at Dover, Vermont. If you're interested in finding out about that, 802-436-2936. On the 28th, guided meditation for healing using the magic bubble of light at Zenith Alternatives in Randolph by someone named Rashana. Again, that's 728-3730 number. And on the 28th through the 1st, a journey of discovery using psychosynthesis. 864-1877 if you want to find out more about it. The 30th, also the 30th on October 1st, Conscious Community Retreat based on the model espoused by M. Scott Peck. This is at the UVM Church Street Center, and their number is 656-5800. This sounds interesting, and I wish I could do it. From the 5th through the 9th of October, exploring the Celtic path to your soul with Dr. John O'Donoghue from the west coast of Ireland. And I don't have, well, it says look on page 17, which I suppose I could have done. But if you get Ever-Changing, if you're interested in spiritual matters, and I think they have them at the Spiral, you can call 802-845-2985 to find out more about that. And that actually sounds like it's pretty interesting, don't you think? And then there's Breathwork and Jin Shindo. Again, these same places, Zenith Alternatives, Lightgate Center, and the UVM Church Street Center, seem to be doing the most at this point, with the exception of, on October 14th, a class in living energy healing with Tim Yandow, who's a graduate of the Barbara Brennan School. That's at the Awakening Center in Shelburne. And outside of that, that seems to be what's going on in the metaphysical world in Vermont. Once again, if you have anything that you would like me to announce on the air, spiritual going on, I'll be happy to do so. I'm going to finish with a poem, which is about the changing seasons, since that's what we're approaching. There is such a comfort in the rhythm of the seasons that I cannot imagine living in a place where there is no shifting of the days or hours, no way to understand or find a trace of how the days tumble into months and years, with their own very special kind of grace. I was once in Florida at Christmas where one would ever find a Yule log there, unless it was fashioned of neon bright pink plastic, and what on earth would Santa ever wear? There was no comfort to be found on sandy beaches, nor in the people who didn't seem to care. California in February is all too cheerful. There are no frigid mornings there for me to dread, and everyone is smiling far too much for my taste. Give me cloudy winter days at home instead, when the temperature is hardly ever above zero and we don't want to leave the comfort of the bed. So I, for one, am glad to welcome autumn as it flings its coat of many colors across the lands, and the crunch of leaves beneath my feet is somehow thrilling, even if it must be raked anon by weary hands. The world smells of apples and fires burning bright, while the geese fly south in their geometric bands. Yet in fall I always think of sad Demeter, searching for Persephone, but all in vain, until Pluto gave her up to please the gods, but her love of pomegranates brought her back again. So in fall we already feel the touch of winter, and in that touch there is a glittering pain. So lift your feet and dance the dance of autumn, the dance that has us bringing in the sheaves and celebrating once more the wine of springtime as we roll and play happily among the leaves. And never let yourselves think of winter's coming or what secrets it has up its woolly sleeves. Changes are what make our lives so vibrant, so never seek to keep things always as they are, but bend and dip with every passing moment and reach out to touch the nearest falling star. Embrace this moment and then embrace the next one, for these moments are what make us who we are. Until next time, which will be the Scorpio show, and because, as I mentioned, with these 2 new moons in Scorpio, we're going to have a lot to talk about, because I'm very interested to see exactly how it happens. I think it's every 33 months there's what's called a blue moon, which is either an extra new moon or a full moon. And so since there's 12 signs to think about, it's been, 36 years, 35, 36 years since we've had 2 new moons in Scorpio. I'll let you know the exact date on that at the next show. But I think that it's very thrilling to think of what this could bring into our lives, to have these 2 new moons in Scorpio, one on each side of Pluto's final adventure out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius on the 10th. So there'll be a new moon in late October and a new moon in late November. And with Pluto moving in between, I think it could be pretty interesting. So that's something to think about. Scorpio being that sign of regeneration and rebirth and excitement and all of those things that it is, and mystery. You know, perhaps one of the things we can do on the Scorpio show is lift some of those veils that make Scorpio such a mysterious sign. I mean, I think about it. Of course, I know a lot of Scorpios being a Cancer and a water sign, but even those I think I have known the longest, or I think I know the best, they always like to keep that little last mystery so that you don't find out everything. So remember, Libra, balance. The equinox will help. It's double Libra. Whatever it is you need to put into balance in your life, do it over the next 30 days. You've got help from the stars. And when you got that kind of help, how can you go wrong? It's been fun sharing this hour with you. And until we meet again, may the stars be with you. This is Kathleen Johnson, and I will see you again in late October. Until then.
Good evening, and welcome to the
Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces show. There, that gives us enough to talk about, doesn't it? Well, you see, the thing of it is, it's actually the Scorpio show, but things being what they are in my life, with my mom being ill and at home, and winter nights being what they are, and the stress level in my life becoming steadily more intense, I said there are some things I have to do without for a while, and one of them is the show. However, we will be back for the spring equinox in March, marking the first degree of Aries, with a new format, some wonderful new visuals, and a lot of bright new ideas, which I get to work on all winter. Of course, knowing me, that means I'll begin them about March 18th, so as to be ready on the 20th instead of when I leave the show, because I seem to find it impossible to do anything ahead of time. Must be I like working under deadlines. Anyway, I have no guest this evening, excuse me, because there's a lot of stuff, naturally, astrologically, going on over the next few months, and I'd like to discuss most of it, as well as talk about Scorpio. Well, last year for the Scorpio show, there was a lot to talk about, and this year is no exception. There is so much going on. Last year, on December 9th, Pluto and Jupiter conjuncted at the end of Scorpio before Jupiter moved on into Sagittarius, and Pluto followed it about a month later. This year, Pluto goes back into Sagittarius for good on November 10th. Well, not for good, but for 15 years, which is the same diff, seeing as how by the time it comes back to Scorpio again in 250 years, none of us will be around to tell the difference, at least. We all may be around, but we won't look like we do now. So it's an exciting time. I mean, Pluto was in Sagittarius for a few months this year, from mid-January through mid-April. And it turned around and retrograded back through the end of Scorpio again, which I'm sure that anyone born the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd of November is only too well aware of, that Pluto has tromped over your doorstep. This is the third and final time. And remember, I've talked about this before, about retrogrades. When a planet goes retrograde, meaning it passes back over ground, it's already been over, and then comes forward again for the third time, it's really giving you a golden opportunity to learn those lessons and make sure that you never forget them. And I'm sure none of you ever will. So, Pluto is going into Sagittarius. This is big stuff. We'll talk more about it a little later in the show. But for the main part, it happens on November 10th, just a few days after the Taurus-Scorpio full moon, and it's going to be quite an event. In the meantime, the Sun entered Scorpio on October 23rd, the afternoon thereof, and immediately we had the first of what will be 2 new moons in Scorpio this year. Now, every 33 months, and it's called a blue moon, the second one, and this occurs every 33 months in one sign or another, first in a new moon, then in a full moon. So you realize that this has not happened in Scorpio for about 70 years. So most of you Scorpios who are out there looking have not had one before in your lifetime, a blue moon. So this is something to think about. This means, and you think about all the things in your life that are associated with the blue moon. And I don't just mean the snow that turned Babe the Blue Ox blue. But, you know, the song Blue Moon, or it happens once in a blue moon. What great news. This means that for you, Scorpio, or if you have Scorpio rising, or the moon in, or whatever, this year can be that once in a blue moon. Whatever you might have hoped might someday happen, or said, oh yeah, sure, once in a blue moon. Hey, hey, here it is. Time to put your money where your mouth is and see what can happen. Scorpio, it's a year to have faith in yourself, to reach for the brass ring one more time, and see what you can do to really find your place in the sun. Or being a Scorpio, your place out of the sun in the cave might be preferable. Scorpio does rule caves and dank underground grottos and all of those wonderful things, as well as the desert. I have to have a hard time trying to figure out where you would find a dank underground grotto in a desert. I guess it would be at the edge of the oasis, huh? Anyway, Scorpio is a fixed sign, the middle sign of the water signs, the other two being Cancer and Pisces. It is fixed water, water which does not move. Thus it is ice. It is that stagnant water all covered with green guck that you see in pools and ponds. It is water that does not move. Fixed is your key word here. So, Scorpios often have a hard time moving from one train of thought to another. It's easiest of all for you
to simply hold your position. So one of the things that we really like to see happen to Scorpios is for you to get a glimpse as to how to move forward toward the next step in your life. And certainly Pluto in Sagittarius is going to be more than generous with its information. So we have the 2 new moons. Venus is in Scorpio. Mars is in Scorpio. Actually, Mars just popped into Sagittarius. Mercury is not in Scorpio yet, will be in early November, but I'll go through my whole planetary listing later in the show. So there's plenty of Scorpio energy about. Now, fixed water, ruled by Pluto, lord of the underworld. Before Pluto was discovered in 1930 and assigned the rulership of Pluto, Mars ruled, and it was considered its night house. Therefore, there's always a special connection between Aries and Scorpio because of that Mars placement. Scorpio is the sign of transformation and transmutation. Great changes take place here, but they are subtle changes because in the body, Scorpio rules 2 things, the reproductive organs and also the bowels. So the things that happen in Scorpio, you know, it's like the reproductive organs. A woman can be pregnant and not know it till it shows, or until she gets some real strong indication. She could be pregnant for 3 or 4 weeks and not know it till the news comes to light. You can be, the way that things work within the body is something that's not necessarily known to us unless we become medical professionals or decide to read a lot about it. Pluto's action is in the dark. However, it is very real and it is very effective. When Pluto comes through your life and decides to shake things up, it's not like Uranus. I mean, Uranus just comes in, turns the house upside down, sends you to Kansas without a fare thee well. Pluto comes along and does the same thing, but so subtly and so cleverly that you don't even know you're in Kansas until you see the street signs. So they both have a transformative nature, but it's very different. In addition, Scorpio is about mystery. It's about sex. It's about death. It's about surrender. It's about the inner self. It rules naturally the 8th house of the zodiac, one of the intuitive houses. Scorpio people like to know what's happening. They like to pull aside the veils and peek. I guess they're the voyeurs of the zodiac. But they're also the researchers and the genealogists and the people who really want to see what's happening. They like to know what went before. They like to know what's going to come next. There are a lot of great Scorpio archaeologists. So this is a sign with a lot of energy happening around it. It and Virgo, in fact, are the only 2 triple signs of the zodiac. And Scorpio's triplicities are very different because we have the scorpion, of which I'm sure everyone knows at least one of those kind of Scorpios. We have the eagle and we have the dove. I always feel the scorpion is represented by Charles Manson, the eagle by Richard Burton, and the dove by Billy Graham. All 3 men who had tremendous personal magnetism, who had the power of their voice, but they used it in such different ways. Manson in such a scorpionic way, destructive. Burton, like the eagle, high-flying but still a bird of prey and still very much in the self. And Graham, much more your dove, who spreads the message of the Lord around the world. So these are 3 very real and very true manifestations of Scorpio, yet all very different. So it's interesting to see how this sign works. So Scorpio is also connected to performing. And it does, there are some fabulous Scorpio performers. When I was thinking before about researchers, both Pierre and Marie Curie were Scorpios. You know, there was a pair working together in chemistry, just bringing some incredible things together. Scorpio performers. Julia Roberts, Burton, of course. Lots of others who have wonderful speaking voices. Scorpio is a sign that almost lures us in. You know, if you're a Scorpio, or if you're with someone who they say, oh, I'm a Scorpio, you can just see everybody going, oh, really? Wonder what your secret is, or what mystery you have. And I find that Scorpios kind of like mysteries. They really like being able to not tell everything, to hold a little bit back till another time. This is all very interesting. Now, I would like to just for a moment hold up the drawing of Scorpio that Louise Blake had made for Aquarian Voices and kind of explain what all the different things are. And if I can do so, we'll see what we can do. Is this the right way to hold it? Yes, it has print across it, I'm sorry to say. Oh, that's excellent. Who we see here is Persephone sitting in her cave. And there's the scorpion and the dove and the eagle and the snake, which is also ruled by Scorpio. It suggests that it's probably damp in there, which is a very scorpionic kind of thing. And deep red, burgundy red, and black and deep purple are all kind of Scorpio colors. So this is this drawing, and also even the whole concept of Persephone is very scorpionic. After all, it was Pluto, Hades, as called by the Greeks, who kidnapped her and took her to his underground realm, whereupon, if she were able to stay there and not eat anything or drink anything, she would be able to come back to the earth and back to her mother Demeter, and everything would be as it was before. But of course, she could not do that. She had to eat those pomegranate seeds. And so that we have winter, which, by the way, it's starting to feel this evening may be on the way in spite of these beautiful days that we've had. There's definitely a thought that winter is tiptoeing just behind the edges, just out of reach. So the Scorpio ushers us in transition. And this can be very different. I mean, there are years when already we have snow on the ground by October 25th or 29th or 30th or whenever you're watching this. This year, an Indian summer has chosen to linger, perhaps because of all this power in Scorpio. It was warm late in the year last year as well, and helping this transmutation to come more slowly. Certainly the leaves were gorgeous. Certainly we have come to a time when it feels like everyone's ready for a change. I mean, have you noticed whatever profession you're in, whether at work or in your family or whatever, I, of course, seeing clients and talking to people from all over the country or the world at different times, but there's this feeling that people are ready for a change. And I know part of it is the Pluto moving into Sagittarius, and another part of it comes next January when Uranus moves into its own sign of Aquarius again, which it also dipped its toe in this year for a few months and scampered back to Capricorn to get its plan together before it entered into Aquarius. But we have, over the next 3 months, tremendous amount of motion taking place in the zodiac. And it's not just Mercury and Venus and Mars, it's Jupiter. I mean, between now and the middle of April, we have Jupiter changing signs, Saturn changing signs, Uranus changing signs, and Pluto changing signs. Of the 5 major planets, Neptune is the only one who hasn't gotten on the bandwagon yet, and it will be moving into Aquarius, but not for a couple more years. So this is a time of profound change, because when you think of what all of these elements represent, you know, the planets from the Sun to Mars are more considered the personal ones. Jupiter, which is luck and abundance, which has been in its own sign of Sagittarius all through the year and will be moving into Capricorn, which is good because Capricorn rules the economy of the United States. Capricorn is the second house of Sagittarius energy, so that grounds financially. And Capricorn is also in the universal zodiac. It's a sign of success and fame in business, so we hope that this Jupiterian action is going to boost the economy for next year, although other indicators go, but more on that when I do my whole planetary thing. So we have Jupiter. Now we have Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, which has been in Pisces for the last couple of years, since 93, I believe, which is not a particularly compatible sign for Saturn. I mean, Pisces can get depressed or emotional enough without the heavy hand of Saturn sitting there going, you'd better do things right and you'd better become more organized or something terrible is going to happen. Saturn will be moving into Aries, a sign where it's not very comfortable either, but at least Aries is a cardinal sign, and it's Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, is also a cardinal sign. So at least there is, more of a sense of motion going on there. But that doesn't happen until April, and we'll talk more about it on my first show of the new series. So then we come to Uranus. Uranus has spent 7 years in each sign, having an 84-year cycle in all. So if you're 84 or over, you're probably going to be having your Uranus return sometime in the next few years, because you were born with Uranus in Aquarius, and this is the first time since the 12th century that it has entered its own sign twice in the same century. So once again, it's pretty heavy-duty stuff, and this Uranus in Aquarius is going to flash us right past the millennium, full speed ahead, keeping our eyes so finely tuned in on the future that we won't even think to be nervous and go, what's going to happen now? What do you think is going to go on? Instead, it'll be, oh, well, come on, let's do it. Push up the steam. So we have this Uranian delight to look forward to. Once we pass that one, and like I said, Neptune's not, actually before then is Pluto. And Pluto and Neptune can sometimes tie for the length they spend in a sign. Usually it's about 15 years, but when Pluto was in Cancer earlier this year, it was there for 29 years because it went through, it retrograded, had such lengthy retrograde periods, and it's been in its own sign only like 12 and a half years. Because it was in there in 84, retrograded back into Libra from the summer of 84, and then went through again in 85, and here it is, the end of 95, and it's leaving. So it was like 11 years, a short distance. It will be longer in Sagittarius. So Jupiter with luck, Saturn with structure, Uranus, that force that says, well, you think you got everything together? Guess what? I have got such a surprise for you. I hope you'll like it. And sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. And Pluto, transformation. I tell you, I feel like with these next few months, we are really getting a glimpse of what lies way ahead. What's happening isn't just about 1995 and 1996. It's about 2000 and 2001 and 2005, and we're just getting the taste of what the millennia holds, because you have to realize Uranus will still be in Aquarius and Pluto will still be in Sagittarius. Saturn will have moved on by then into Taurus, and Neptune will have moved on into Aquarius, and Jupiter will, of course, be 4 signs ahead. It will be in Taurus or Gemini. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. So, action is the word of the year. After this Scorpio, hold still, don't move yet, be sure you're ready, look at all the angles, be sure you picked up all the veils, looked underneath, behind, around, up, down, every which way. Pluto in Sagittarius is going to just be a lot more footloose and fancy-free. It's pretty exciting stuff, and definitely gives us something to look forward to. Now I'm going to stop talking about astrology for a few minutes, if that's possible, and review a few books that came in to mind. The first one, which is just lovely, called Find a Quiet Corner, A Simple Guide to Self-Peace. What a nice idea. It's written by a lady named Nancy O'Hara, and it's new from Warner Books, and of course we know Time Warner Books has given us the Celestine Prophecy and many others, so they are really into what's happening with books. It's an inexpensive book. It is full of lovely little inspirational things. I mean, these are the kind of books I love. You don't have to, well, actually, let me tell the truth. I love all kind of books, just about. Probably, I'm not really fond of mysteries, and some modern novels leave me cold, but I'm a sucker for a wonderful historical romance, and when it comes to fantasy, like Patricia Conaley Morrison's The Keltiad, or the Eddings, Belgariad, and now Belgarath the Sorcerer, the prequel is out. I'm a sucker for those. But I also love these books where you pick it up, Solitude. There's a thought for Scorpio, one of the signs of aloneness. If you're unaccustomed to spending time alone, it will take some time to adjust to the idea and then to the experience of aloneness. Solitude need not be lonely. In fact, as you learn how to spend your time, a richness will develop, and the issue of being alone will fade away. You'll become absorbed in your activity, and the outside world will cease to exist. Outside pressures will quiet down, and the demands put on you by yourself and others will subside. When you return to your world, you'll have a fuller appreciation of the people in your life and more love in your heart. Now, you might flinch at the idea of being alone. Perhaps your memories of time spent alone are sad ones associated with loneliness. Or maybe you're the type who loves to be surrounded by people, and when no one's around, the TV or radio will be on just for company. Instead of thinking your quiet corner will take you away from others, think of being alone in your quiet corner as a means of bringing you closer to the people in your life. This outlook might make your quiet corner easier to face, and after some time, when you realize the truth of this, you'll settle down and your resistance will gradually disappear. And then she goes on to calming the mind in progress and relaxing and the sounds and focusing on the moment, something else which seems to be happening, not only in my own life, but most of the people I talk to are being put through experiences that keep them in the moment, whether you want to be or not. I know I've said it before, and I'll say it one last time, because think of this, you don't have to hear it till March again. Ram Dass had it right. Be here now. Don't waste today thinking about yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. Be here now. It's the only way to live. Second book, by the man himself, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Violence and compassion. There's an interesting pairing of ideas. And it's written with French film writer Jean-Claude Carrière, and it's his conversations with the Dalai Lama. Now, the Dalai Lama has become the very heart of Buddhist compassion, as many people who live in the Middlebury area know. I believe it was in 1990 when he came to visit the college for the second time in just a few years and led at the field house a meditation of compassion that I certainly couldn't miss. I mean, when are you going to get to sit and meditate with him? And this is a book of very interesting conversations about the world in which we live, about education, about God, about the science of mind, about exile, his exile, reincarnation. I like that chapter, the Big Bang and reincarnation, and finally the void. And I would like to read just a little bit from the Big Bang and reincarnation, because Scorpio also rules, you guessed it, reincarnation. When you want to see what's happening astrologically with past lives, you look to see what Pluto's doing, and you look to see what's going on in the 8th house of a person's chart. Are you the last Dalai Lama? That's quite possible. The Dalai Lama, by the way, is a Cancer. Oh, so nice to have so many great people right in that sign, as is Guru Mai Chidvilasananda. Are you the last Dalai Lama? That's quite possible. Why? There are two sorts of reasons. First of all, political, because the Chinese say, I have only one desire, to restore the old kingdom, to get back my servants, my privileges, and the 1,000 rooms of the Potala, which is the great palace in which the Dalai Lamas live. What's your answer to that? That the institution of the Dalai Lama is not under my jurisdiction, it is the business of the Tibetans themselves. You said somewhere you would like to end your days in a monastery. The idea does not displease me. And what is the other reason? Many people think the Dalai Lama is inseparable from the Tibetan people. That's false. Up until the 16th century, Tibet got along fine without a Dalai Lama, and it could be the same way tomorrow. Could another Dalai Lama be born outside Tibet? Why not? One was a native of Mongolia. What are your relations with Mongolia? Very lively, and they go back very far. Now, I also have to read this just because it's, of course, so ridiculous. It's about women. The idea that women were born to make men unhappy is widespread throughout the world and throughout history. Despite his enormous lucidity, the Buddha did not always escape this rule either. He described women as mostly mad and wicked and fierce like brigands, and exhorted his disciples to become monks and to do without women. For months, the Buddha even refused to open his door to his father's second wife, who had raised him with loving care. Years passed before he allowed the foundation of women's communities, and as to whether a woman could reach illumination, Sakyamuni consented to admit this only after long debates with his disciples. So, for a long time, women have had to observe precise rules in dealing, for instance, with begging monks. In filling the alms bowl, they couldn't touch the food. They could never be the first to speak, or sit in a posture that might arouse him. But there is this is a good story, which is what I'm getting to, told in Paul Repp's Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. 2 Zen monks are on a journey. They come to a river in flood. A frightened woman approaches and asks them to help her cross the tumultuous waters. Her mother lives over on the other side and is seriously ill. Both of these monks have taken solemn vows never to touch the flesh of a woman, but the first one takes hold of her without hesitation and helps her across. Once arrived on the other side, the woman thanks him and hastens off, and the two continue their way in silence. After walking this way for half an hour, the second monk, who has been fuming the entire time, suddenly asks the first, "How could you break your vows? How did you dare touch the body of that woman?" The other one looks at him and says, "I left the girl back there. Are you still carrying her?" The rule of celibacy remains still strict, but now you'll see monks strolling through the streets, chatting with men and women. And the last question he asks, is it a sign of negative karma to be reborn in the body of a woman? And I'm glad to say that the Dalai Lama does not think so. In fact, he feels that the new Buddha may well be a woman. Some people have said that about the coming of Christ as well. Now, this is a book, I have to say, I will recommend with all my heart and soul. And I do the Dalai Lama too, but this one particularly, again, if you only have a short time to read, it's called The Handbook of the Soul. It's published by Little Brown. And it has quotes from lots of our favorite people: Thomas More, Stephen Covey, John Gray, Wayne Dyer, Lynn Andrews. Just, it goes on and on and on. And I'll even forgive the fact that it has a foreword by Marianne Williamson. But it's a lovely book because it has essays from people, and the essays, average, let's see, maybe 8 or 10 pages. There's Soul in Everyday Life, with writings by Jean Shinoda Bolen, Robert Fulgham, Rabbi Harold Kushner, Thomas More, whose Care of the Soul, of course, has been an enormous bestseller, Marion Woodman. Then there's The Heart of the Soul, with writings by Bernie Siegel, Joan Borisenko, Stephen Levine, and John Gray. And The Journey of the Soul, Brian Weiss, Ram Dass, Sydney Banks, and Linda Leonard, who wrote a beautiful piece called Seasons of the Soul. And I had not ever encountered her writing before, so I was very pleased to be able to do that. Rekindling Your Soul, with writing by Jack Canfield, Lynn Andrews, Nathaniel Brandon, Gerald Jampolsky, whose writings I do know, and John Kabat-Zinn, who I have just started to read. Then The Lessons, with Wayne Dyer, Richard Carlson, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I love that. Soul Gifts in Disguise. And Soulful Living, and The Last Soul Communion, with writings by Stephen Covey, Matthew Fox, Jacob Needleman, Phil Cousineau, Benjamin Shield, Angeles Arian, the great Tarot mistress, Betty Eady, who's Embraced by the Light has become such a big bestseller, and Melody Beatty. Now, I would like to, because Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the great death educator, and again, we're in Scorpio time, I would read just a little bit from this. The quote is, "If we could see that everything, even tragedy, is a gift in disguise, we would then find the best way to nourish the soul." Over the years, I have learned that every life circumstance, even a crisis, can nourish your soul. Recently, the farm and home that I have loved so much for so many years burned down in a horrible fire. Everything that I owned, without exception, was lost. There was even speculation that foul play was involved. At moments like this, we stand in a fork in the road. If we take the fork most commonly traveled, we collapse and give up. We point to unhappy circumstances. After all, it takes very little effort to feel victimized. But if we take the other fork, we can view this opportunity, this unexperience, as an opportunity for a new beginning. By simply deciding to see the possibilities rather than the pain, I was able to come through the loss of my home with more strength and contentment than I had before the fire. Viewing the situation in perspective, I realized that most of the things I had collected over my lifetime were, in effect, just things. I didn't need them anymore. No longer tied to my house, I decided to move to Arizona to be closer to my son. I love my new surroundings as much as I did my previous environment. And I'll skip through it and go to the end where she says, whether you know it or not, one of the most important relationships in your life is with your soul. Will you be kind and loving to your soul, or will you be harsh and difficult? Many of us unknowingly damage our souls with our negative attitudes and actions or by simple neglect. By making the relationship with your soul an important part of your life, by honoring it in your daily routine, you give your life greater meaning and substance. Use your experiences, all of them, as opportunities to nourish your soul. So I highly recommend and appreciate the book. It is compiled and edited by Richard Carlson and Benjamin Shield, both who hold doctorates. And it's a lovely book. It's pretty. It's all in white and gold, and it has beautiful words in it. Now this book, I think, which I just someone gave it to me to read, has been out a while, I believe, yes, since '93. It's called Grace and Grit. And it is the story of psychologist Ken Wilber and his wife, Treya Killiam Wilber, who suffered through cancer for 5 years and finally died. And I have read some of this in, I think, Free Spirit or one of the New Earth or one of the New Age type magazines, maybe even New Age itself. And I've flipped through it, but just the table of contents lets you know exactly what's happening here. A few embraces, a few dreams. These are chapter headings. Beyond physics. Condemned to meaning. A question of balance. A universe within. Body, mind dropped. My life had twisted suddenly. Who am I? Narcissus, or the self-contraction. And I want to stop and say that anytime there is grievous pain or hurt, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, contraction into the self to heal is a perfectly normal thing to do and quite recommended. A time to heal, psychotherapy and spirituality. In a different voice, what kind of help really helps? That's one of the chapters I read, and it's excellent. The New Age, listen to those birds sing. Spring is now my favorite season, but not a dead one. And how about this one? Passionate equanimity. See, how can you have equanimity with passion? That's an interesting thought. A support person, grace and grit, and for a radiant star. And because I liked that chapter, what kind of help really helps? And I think all of us, if we don't face it in our own life, certainly we have friends and loved ones who get put in a hard place, between a rock and a hard place. And in this one, he speaks about Kalu Rinpoche, who was thought to be one of Tibet's very greatest modern masters. And when his wife became ill, he dreamt that Kalu had given him a magical book that somehow contained all the secrets of the universe. And shortly after, they went to a 10-day wisdom retreat given by Kalu at Big Bear outside of Los Angeles. And he makes it clear that he doesn't particularly call himself a Buddhist, but that he likes things that are in Buddhism, as he loves many others. And one of the practices that they did in this retreat was to visualize someone who you know and love who is going through much suffering. As you breathe in, imagine all of that person's suffering in the form of dark, black, smoke-like tar, thick, with heavy clouds entering your nostrils and traveling down into your heart. Hold that suffering in your heart. Then on the out-breath, take all of your peace, freedom, health, goodness, and virtue, and send it to that person in the form of healing and liberating light, and visualize them taking it all in and feeling released and happy. Then imagine that the town that the person is in, the state, the country, the planet, the universe, taking in the suffering and sending back health, happiness, and virtue. And he says that when people were first introduced to the practice, their reactions were very negative. What? Take that stuff into me? It made me cough even to think about it, right? What if I actually get sick? So when Kalu first gave these Tonglen instructions, a woman said, what if I'm doing this with someone who is really sick and I start to get that sickness myself? Whereupon Kalu said, you should think, oh good, it's working. And he laughs because he said, this caught all of us selfless ones with our egos hanging out. But it's an interesting thing, this thought of Tonglen, which means taking and sending, and has to do with healing. So think about it. Ken Wilber, Grace and Grit. Spirituality and Healing in the Life and Death of Treya Killam Wilber. And then the last book, and then we get back to all the astrological stuff that's going on. Excuse me. It's a beautiful book by Helen M. Luke called The Way of Women, Awakening the Perennial Feminine. And it gets wonderful reviews from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the Woman Who Run with the Wolves lady, and Thomas Moore, and Jonathan Cott, and Marion Woodman, who does the foreword. And I quote from it. Helen Luke can strike one note with one finger with such sensitivity that resonates forever in our soul. On behalf of countless women and men, I say thank you, Helen. Thank you for guiding me to the courage of my own feminine depths. Thank you for strengthening me in finding my feminine voice. Thank you for steadfastly living the feminine values in a society that consciously and unconsciously despises them. Thank you for encouraging me to go where I might never have dared to go alone. And thank you for shining the light into corridors where I have yet to go. Now this book, the writer, Helen Luke, is a counselor, writer, Jungian therapist, of long life, 1904 to 1995. 6 decades of experience in this book. And it is quite wonderful. Quite wonderful. There are wonderful tales. I like this thought, The Bridge of Humility. I also like, they have something on money and the feminine principle, which is really worth reading. Suffering, which we've just talked about. And mother and daughter mysteries, which I found most particularly interesting because of, in my household, is my mother and my daughter, which means I get to be both a mother and a daughter all the time, and sometimes it's a pretty interesting juggling act. She quotes from a C.S. Lewis story, one of our favorite people in the world, right? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all of wonderful Narnia. And not to mention his very serious religious tracts, but this is called she speaks about a story called Till We Have Faces, based on the myth of Psyche and Eros, and told from the point of view of one of the ugly sisters. And then the even more ancient myth of Demeter and Kore, which is another name for Persephone, and the whole thing of how Persephone's out there picking flowers, and the Lord of the Underworld comes and carries her off, unseen and unheard by any except the goddess Hecate, who heard the cry from her cave. Persephone cried out to Zeus to save her, but he took no notice of it at all, for he'd planned the whole thing and promised her to Pluto, Hades, without ever telling anyone. And then this tells the whole story, but it tells it both from the mythological and the Jungian point of view, and makes it very interesting. So this, too, it's a beautiful book. It's definitely written from a psychological counseling point of view, and Jungian. I mean, we talk about the anima, and she talks about all sorts of things, but the myths she uses, Yoan from Tolkien, lovely African tale, the whole story of Rumpelstiltskin and straw into gold, And of course, these mother and daughter mysteries. It's well worth reading. If you're a woman, if you're a man, if you're a mother, a daughter, if you have mothers, if you have daughters, read it. Now, in the last section of the show, I'm going to try to cover Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius and Pisces in terms of what's happening. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Pisces, Aquarius. Okay, five signs, and what's going on during the time that they're taking place. And what I'm going to do is basically go through the major planetary changes. I'm going to have some remarks on Pluto, the dark hero, which will be excerpts from an article that you'll be able to read in Ever Changing. And of course, if I remember to bring it, I have a poem. It's for solstice night, which is a little early, but I won't be doing a show on solstice night, and I wouldn't want to miss it. So, we're going to cover a lot of astrological territory just to keep you posted on what's happening. You may want to get a pencil and paper to jot down some key dates, or you might want to just tape the show and keep checking on it throughout the months. I'll go through the planets in order rather than month by month, from the Sun to Pluto. Rather than saying this is what's happening in November, December, I'll do the planetary thing. The Sun just entered Scorpio on October 23rd, and we promptly had a new moon. The first of two in this sign that will liven things up for all of us. The second one occurs on November 22nd, just hours before the Sun moves into Sagittarius. So we have the first new moon coming within hours of the Sun moving into Scorpio at 1/2 degrees, and the second one is at like 29 degrees and 45 minutes. So it's just like a half an hour before the Sun changes signs. The winter solstice, in turn, occurs as the Sun transits into Capricorn. This year it happens in the wee hours of December 22nd, with lots and lots of planets in Capricorn, 6 of them. The Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. By the time we hit January 1st, 1996, there are still 5 planets there, and this may well get the year off to a slow financial start. Be prepared. It's definitely a year to be grounded with all of this Earth stuff. And since there are 6 out of the 10 planets in Capricorn on the solstice, which of course, as we know, is the longest night and the shortest day and the time when we really need to have a tight grip on our faith, do it so if you have a celebration, if you have a meditation, if you're thinking about it, remember that Earth is the primordial element here, all the way. The Sun enters Aquarius on January 20th and glides into Pisces on February 19th. The spring equinox, of course, occurs on March 20th, this year at 3:03 in the morning, and my first show of spring will be happening right around then. We move from the Sun to the Moon. The 2 new moons in Scorpio are, of course, of paramount importance in this time of change and transformation. There is a new moon at 29 degrees, after the 2 new moons in Scorpio. There is a new moon at 29 degrees of Sagittarius on December 21st, the new moon in Capricorn on January 20th, in Aquarius on February 18th, and the new moon in Pisces on March 19th, the day before the solstice. Next are the full moons. The Taurus-Scorpio one is on November 7th, Gemini-Sagittarius December 6th, Cancer-Capricorn full moon energy arrives on January 5th. February 4th marks the Leo-Aquarius polarity, and the last full moon of this 5-month cycle is that of Virgo-Pisces, falling on March 5th. Mercury, which has just recently had a retrograde cycle from the 22nd of September to the 13th of October, don't we all know it, is in direct motion until January 9th. In fact, once Saturn goes direct, on the 21st of November, everything is in direct motion until January 9th, giving us possibly one of the better Decembers on record. Anyway, Mercury is currently in Libra until November 4th, moving into Scorpio, and then into Sagittarius on the 22nd. It enters Capricorn on December 11th and Aquarius on the very first day of the new year. After its backward turn, it slides back into Capricorn on the 17th of January, turns direct on the 30th, that will be a 21-day retrograde, and returns to Aquarius on Valentine's Day. Sounds good to me. It then moves into Pisces on March 7th and proceeds into Aries in the company of Mars on the 24th. So that will be quite a day, with Mars returning to its own sign and Mercury trotting right along with it, and of course Saturn will be coming in later. Venus currently is in Scorpio. It enters Sagittarius on November 3rd and Capricorn on November 27th. It dances happily into Aquarius, where it, I don't know, there's something about Venus and Aquarius. They're not really so well matched, because Aquarius is always trying to be so above it all, and Venus is conscious desire, but it always seems to bring a twinkle to the eyes of Aquarians, and it gives Venus some structure. So that happens on December 21st, just before the Sun moves into Capricorn, into Pisces on January 14th, Aries on February 8th, Taurus on March 5th. Mars, as we speak, is in Sagittarius, having just popped in there last Friday. It enters Capricorn on November 30th, Aquarius on January 8th, and Pisces on February 15th. It then returns to its own sign of Aries on March 24th. Jupiter continues its steady passage through the sign of Capricorn, which I'm sure it's now getting into toward the last 10 degrees, will make everyone born from the 10th to the 21st of December very happy. Right now it's starting to bring good fortune into the lives of those born from the 5th to the 10th. But anyway, it continues till the 3rd of January, when it moves into Capricorn for the next 13 months. This will be good for us because it boosts the economy of the United States, as well as because, as I mentioned before, Capricorn is Sagittarian's solar house of money, so it's positive. Saturn turns direct on November 21st and will continue through Pisces until it moves into Aries next April. So all of you Pisceans born from March 10th through the 20th will have some old tests to look at one more time. Before you say boring, 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 remember the joy, the test of experience, the opportunities. Saturn brings opportunities. You know why? As boring as it may be to go over old ground, remember, life is a spiral. You may look like you're in the same position, but you're one notch up on the spiral, one bit closer to the top. And that test is so you can release that energy, that thought, that person for good. Don't have to come back again. Uranus is moving through the final degrees of Capricorn for the third and last time. Another one, third time around. Okay, let's let it go. All of you born at the very end of Capricorn, let Uranian energy really set you free. Its entrance to Aquarius on January 12th will be for the full 7-year visit, taking us past the millennium with a real sense of personal freedom and independence. Neptune is still transiting Capricorn and will be for another 2 years, and it remains in direct motion through this time period, as do Jupiter and Uranus and Saturn once it goes direct. I'm saving the best for last because the really big news involves Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio. It's been in its own sign, about to fly off into Sagittarius, and this is a big move, for it last made this transit in the fall of 1749, about 245 years ago. This is important. This is a time of revelation. Be prepared to have your secrets scattered to the winds and deal with it. And this occurs on November 10th. Now, if I can find my other piece of paper, I will talk a little bit more about this whole happening. Put my poem back there because that's at the end. The full text of this appears in the upcoming issue of Ever Changing, and it's called Pluto, Dark Hero of the 90s. Every decade has a planetary signature that indicates the current that roils beneath what might be transpiring on the surface. For instance, the 30s, which opened with 6 planets in Capricorn, was definitely a Saturnian decade, while the 50s were being guided by the fantasy-loving but not always foresighted hand of Neptune. The 60s belonged without a doubt to Jupiter, the 70s to Uranus, and the 80s, which began with only 1 planet in Capricorn, no wonder excess was the order of the day, floated back and forth between the Moon and Jupiter. Now, the 90s, I thought originally, was also a Saturnian decade due to the 5 planets in Capricorn on January 1st, 1990. But to my perception, it's turned out to be more Plutonian, as individual and global awareness of the need for transformation has reached an all-time high. Chiron also has a place here, working as partner and backup for Pluto. Further confirmation that we are in a time of metamorphosis, both individually and globally, and Pluto is the one to depend on in moments, years, or decades such as this. In ancient legend, Pluto ruled Hades, the realm of the dead. To cross into it, one had to pass over the Styx, into which 4 tributaries flowed, each representing one of the 4 elements of fire, earth, air, and water. These 4 rivers were named Acheron, the river of bitterness, representing earth; Cocytus, the river of piercing sounds, representing air; Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, bringing in water; and Phlegethon, the river of flame, obviously the fire force. What is to be understood here is that all of these elements have to be crossed over or incorporated into the self before we can begin to understand Pluto. And since most of us are born with Pluto in either Cancer, Leo, Virgo, or Libra, these 4 elements are thoroughly represented in our society today. Pluto was in Gemini as the century began, then into Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and I'm not going to go into all the stuff there, but I am going to talk about what's happening right now. Pluto's journey through Scorpio has been an eye-opener, with AIDS being one of its banners. When a planet transits its own sign, it's always a profound manifestation of energy, but never so powerful as in this time of transformation and transfiguration. Scorpio is a natural channel for 4th ray energy, that of harmony through conflict, which is the ray of humanity in its current stage of evolution. Within it is contained knowledge of the path of wisdom, whether we appear to be following it or not. And those souls that have been coming into incarnation with Pluto and Scorpio are those that will express this ray power in their adult years. We're counting on this transit of Pluto through Sagittarius to give us a new look at death, organized religion, and whatever we think our secrets might be, both on an individual and national level. Pluto is the force of transformation, and although it may have to pick up its pace to accommodate the igneous flow of Sagittarian power, it will soon get the hang of it, and we will be on our way to a new understanding of truth. During Pluto's last visit in Sagittarius, which began on October 7, 1749, Europe was in transit from a primarily agricultural society to one in which the town was replacing the village as the center of daily life. Change was in the air. Maria Theresa was sitting on the Habsburg throne. Clive was marching through India. The calendar was being switched from Julian to Gregorian. Think of this, a change in time. And Joseph Black, a London physicist, brought forth the theory of latent heat, a concept that is singularly apt for Pluto in Sagittarius. Pluto's work is subtle but pervasive. Keep in mind that in ancient legend, when Pluto came into our world, he wore a helmet that rendered him invisible. Because of that invisibility, he can see the motives of our souls even when we cannot. In addition, of all the sons of Saturn, Pluto was the first to disarm him in battle. This is a ray of hope to me that through Pluto, we will all come to a new understanding of death that will defeat Saturn's gloomy views and allow us to anticipate the change from one realm to another with a far better point of view than most of us have now. Pluto is going to bring the darkness into the light, a task which may seem impossible, but those are the tasks that call forth heroes from all the corners of the world. Pluto, it's time to take your place and become the dark hero who shows us how to save ourselves. For that is the most profound salvation of all. I will then read my poem, announce a couple of meetings, and on with it, right? The poem is called Solstice Night, which is, of course, the night of December 21st this year. A head lifts cautiously above a nest of firs, seeking the smallest glimpse of spirit-lifting light. But even the cooking fires show no comforting flame as the world sinks into a cold and endless night. This is the night when fear constricts the heart and fills your mouth with ashy-tasting dread. When the darkness comes and smothers every sound as it slips and slithers into the reaches of your head. Drums beat softly in the back of the great cave with a cadence that matches the pulsing of the night. The wind outside becomes a wild, high fluting, creating music that makes the throat feel tight. Bodies move to gather more and larger logs, as if by creating wonderful, vast fires, the night will take refuge somewhere else, and the light come back to fill our deep desires. Muted sounds fill the air as people whisper in their efforts to keep the darkness far away. They make familiar little gestures that will comfort and keep the night at least a little bit at bay. At last, by the count of drum beats, it is time for the long-fingered sun god to touch the earth. But when the flap is lifted, there is no light. The morning has not yet struggled through its birth. What now? What now? The trembling voices ask. Where is the light giver? Where is our sun? Why is he not here to warm and bless our souls? What have we, oh, what have we done? Then the shaman stands tall among the people. Her feathered staff brings power to her hand, and her darkly gleaming eyes contain a promise as she goes to bring the sun back to the land. Her chanting breaks the stillness of the moment. The power of her call is fierce and great. They feel the spirit rising in the starlight to answer the bidding of the ones who wait. See there, a glimmer of a gleaming. A finger's breadth of light shines in the sky. The God is born, the world is saved again. The light has come. Each voice takes up the cry, and we are whole. The night has passed us by. Makes you appreciate electric lights, doesn't it? Just quickly, because I see we only have a couple of minutes left, there will be a meeting for the Scorpio full moon, Taurus Scorpio full moon on Monday, November 6th, and for the second Scorpio new moon on Wednesday, November 2nd, and the Gemini Sagittarius full moon on Wednesday, December 6th. In January, February, and March, there will be meetings only for the full moon, because I'm cutting back on those two, just through the winter. All meetings will be at the new home of Greg and Wendy Frederick at 7 Rossiter Street in Brandon, and they begin at 7:30 p.m. and run for about an hour. I just want to mention I plan to be doing a lot of classes and workshops this winter. There will be the usual What's Coming Up in 1996, one on what Pluto in Sagittarius means to you, and I plan to start a weekly astrology class of 8 weekly sessions of 2 hours and a 6-week one on the Tarot, also 2 hours apiece. Each class will be limited to 8 students, but there will be room for more in my afternoon workshops, of which I'm planning some Sunday afternoons on self-healing, awakening your goddess, daily crystal rituals and prayers, and meditation and esoteric astrology. Because of the way things are at my house, these classes will be held at a private home at Lake Dunmore, which is easy access from Middlebury. It's not far from Waterhouses. And so please check the Addison Independent in mid-November for the complete description, because, as usual, doing everything at the last minute, I didn't get a chance to get everything together for tonight's show. If you would like to, if you have some suggestions for what we can do, because I'm really looking to change the format, please call me at 802-247-3656 or write to me at Box 2070, RD2, Brandon, Vermont, 05733. I'm interested to hear ideas. It's nice to know people are watching, but I do want to give it a new look. So have a prosperous and happy winter. Isn't here yet, right? Here it is, October 25th, and no snow yet. So have a happy winter. Appreciate the solstice when it comes. Think about the new moons and the full moons. Think about Pluto going into Sagittarius on November 10th and Uranus dashing into Aquarius on January 16th. Think about all the changes and things that are happening over the next few months and the joy and opportunity it can bring into your life. And I will look forward to seeing you in the spring. Until then, may the stars be with you. Have wonderful holidays and love yourselves and each other. Good evening. Welcome to the Virgo edition of Kathleen's Kaleidoscope. In fact, the sun went into Virgo this very day, this morning. And although it's not the best day in the world because Mercury is opposing Saturn, Virgo, to Pisces, yuck, still the Virgo energy has begun. So here we are in it. Now I'm going to tell you right now that I have had this cough for weeks. It just won't go away. And although I took a giant swallow of Robitussin cough suppressant before I got here, who knows how many times I'll have to cough and when, but I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum. Anyway, that would be very Virgoan, don't you think? Virgo is the second of the earth signs of the zodiac. It is what is called mutable, meaning that it's movable. So in that respect, it relates to Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And being an earth sign, it relates to Taurus and Capricorn. It is ruled by Mercury, the second astrological sign to be so ruled, the first one being Gemini. But Mercury in Gemini and Mercury in Virgo are two very different signs, very different planets rather. Mercury in Gemini is much more the lighthearted, devil-may-care messenger of the gods, and Mercury in Virgo is more Hermes, the healer, the thinker, and the more intellectual or more practical attributes of Mercury. So even if you're not a Virgo, if you're born in Mercury in Virgo, you will usually have a pretty orderly mind. So it's ruled by Mercury, it's an earth sign, it's mutable. Other things to know about it is it's one of the two triple signs of the zodiac, the other being Scorpio, meaning that it has three facets. Most signs are either single or some are double, but Virgo is made to represent the three faces of woman. And I'll show you an example of that, because on the cover of Aquarian Voices, which was the journal I published, the drawing that Louise Blake had done, which now I have the colors of, for Virgo, looks sort of like this. Three ladies she represented underneath a tree, and you see that Virgo, which looks like an M but with the closing curve closed. So we have the three faces. We have the mother, the daughter, and the equal partner who has her back turned at this point because she has not been brought into full realization in the world. So therefore, that's why that M of Virgo is closed. And one of the things that all the children born with Pluto in Virgo, who are of course now in their 20s and some approaching their 30s, and the children that will be born when Jupiter, well, in Jupiter's Virgo cycle last time and will be coming in next time, are children who will have a lot to do with bringing this third face of woman into being. So anyway, Virgo is an interesting sign. Even though Cancer is a sign that's traditionally connected to women, Virgo is connected with feminine energy and perhaps more with like consciousness raising and the understanding of feminine in its word receptive energies. So Virgo is a sign that has a lot more to it than meets the eye. I mean, usually when you say Virgo, people go, oh yeah, an accountant, right? Or, oh, boring, you're going to come into my house and straighten my picture frames and run your finger along the top of the mantle to make sure it's been dusted. And yes, there are Virgos who will do that, no doubt about that. But hey, they do that in their own homes. If things are out of balance, they're terribly disturbed and can't get to sleep for hours and hours. But Virgo is also the sign of people like Leonard Bernstein and Charlie Parker, the great jazz musician, and lots of other interesting people. So Virgo is many-faceted, and that's part of its triplicity. A great deal about Virgo remains hidden because basically they're shy people. They don't come rushing right up to you and go, hey, what? I can sing and dance and play the flute. Are you interested? No. They wait, and maybe after they met you for the 15th time and somebody says something about singing, they might go, oh, well, I used to sing in high school, or I've always been interested in singing. So if you have a Virgo as a friend or a family member, know that you often have to elicit information from them. And if you are a Virgo, make this the year in which you maybe speak out a bit more for yourself than you have before. This, oh, certainly nothing that any sensible Virgo would entertain the thought of, but it's a thought. Be bold. Seize the moment. Carpe diem. Don't let that day go by. Anyway, one of the things that all of us can pay attention to when Virgo is the sign in dominance for the next 30 days, first of all, we look at its position in the universal horoscope. It rules the 6th house, that which rules health and service, and also your self-image. So over the next 30 days, if you think there's something to be worked on in your self-image, pick it out. See what you can do about it. Maybe it is that shyness, or maybe it is a desire to get more education, to change it. Whatever it is, start it now, Virgo. And all of us look at life from that point of view. Look at our self-images, see what we need to change. Look at the work we're in. And it's very interesting that astrology separates work and career. Virgo rules the 6th house of work, whereas Capricorn rules the top of the chart, the career house, the 10th house. So it's interesting that astrology knows that your job may not necessarily be your chosen career, as is the case with many people. So you look at your job. Is it the job you want to be in? Is there something you could do to improve it? Is there some way in which you could get along better with the people you work with? Then look at your health. Are you doing the best that you can to care for it? Could you make some changes in your diet, exercise, whatever? Because that's the focus of the energies. I'm going to take a sip of water, excuse me, so that I don't cough all over everybody. If you need to learn more, to get more information on health matters, this is the time to do it. And it is kind of a new beginning. I mean, I know it is for everybody who has children going back to school. Certainly this week we're all scrambling to buy school clothes, make sure that everyone has enough pencils and notebooks and so forth and so on. So it is sort of a new beginning, one that will lead very naturally up to the end of Virgo, which comes on the 23rd of September and is the fall equinox. So don't think that because Virgo is the sign in rulership, that one has to just spend one's life paying attention to details and looking at all the trees so as not to get lost in the forest. But instead look at the positive side of Virgo energy, which has to do with healing, which has to do with research, which has to do with learning more about ourselves in a very positive way, and to be more orderly in a positive way. That doesn't mean that you have to keep a schedule, although the older I get, the more I see what a good idea that is, and to write down things, but to just be more orderly in your plan of life. Now, one last thing I want to mention, which is in the body. The Virgo rules some parts of the digestive system and also the spleen and the pancreas, which leads me to one of our subjects for discussion. In fact, many people who have planets afflicted in Virgo are subject to either high blood sugar or low blood sugar. I mean, I myself have Neptune in Virgo opposing Mars in Pisces, and have been, well, I first got diabetes when I was pregnant, and now have it again. So, you know, living with diabetes. Because of that, our guest this evening is Brendan O'Connell, who is working with the Vermont Diabetes Association right now, going perhaps just a little bit mad, trying to organize the Walktoberfests all over the state. So if you'd come and sit in the guest chair, Brendan, and hook up your microphone. And I am the chairman of the Middlebury Walktoberfest this year, so you can bet I'll be talking about it on this show and the next show and on the radio and to everyone I see. So be prepared to hear my voice talking about the Walktoberfest as well as Brendan's. Anyway, Brendan, welcome to the show. Nice to see you here. Usually we meet in the cafeteria at the hospital to discuss how to get more people to walk in the Walktoberfest. So nice to see you.
Thank you very much for having me on.
What have you been doing today?
Well, I've been working on, we're doing 4 walks throughout the state in 5, in Burlington, Middlebury, Rutland, Barry, St. John's, Barry.
That makes, and you have to travel to see all of these people constantly.
I'm on the phone on a daily basis with our other committee members like yourself, trying to stay up to date on where we stand on registering participants to take part in the event, and also to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our sponsors for the event. Sponsors like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Heritage Automotive, and companies like that. I'm also working on promotion. Things like this, to come out and talk to people about the event and let them know that, there's a terrific walkathon coming to your town on October 1st, and, how about getting involved?
That's right. Yes, we have been busy. We've been sending people out with brochures to every store in Middlebury and Rutland, and I'm sure in Burlington and Barry and wherever other ones are, to get people involved. And because Brendan can tell you more about this, what does the Walktoberfest accomplish? Where does the money go?
Well, Walktoberfest helps us to raise money to benefit the American Diabetes Association, whose mission is to find a preventative and eventually a cure for diabetes. The way we achieve our mission is through a 3-tier program. We do advocacy, research, and education. So all the funds that we raise from an event like Walktoberfest are going to go to those 3 areas. We have a national research foundation, and what we do is we pool our money nationally so we can invest in the top researchers throughout the country who are making headway in their fields. We also have education resources here in the state. We have publications available at our office in Colchester for anyone that is interested in diabetes, whether it be nutrition, whether it be health care as far as exercise goes, and also we work on advocacy issues, making sure that the rights of people with diabetes are protected. A good example of that is a couple years ago, the FAA decided that they were going to take away the licenses of pilots with diabetes. So we had pilots across the country that were affected by this. In fact, we had a gentleman right here in Vermont that decided to take the lead, and with our help, we lobbied the national government to have these ladies and gentlemen reinstated, and it worked out quite successfully. Just recently, we've completed a battle very similar, where truck drivers were being persecuted because of their disease, and were losing their licenses. And so what we had to do is we had to go to the Congress and say, this is a disease that, if managed correctly, causes very few complications. And we're constantly striving to let people know that this is the disease that you can't live through if you take care of yourself.
Yes, you have to take care.
Absolutely.
And it's with everything. Information is always the answer. Now, I, of course, am most interested in the research applications, because not only am I diabetic, but my mother-in-law died of complications of diabetes in her early 60s. So my daughter, I look at my daughter, and she has diabetes in both sides of the family.
Sure.
And it's of great concern to me that something happens that hopefully, before she can be at risk or have it happen to her, that something will be found to nip it in the good old bud, you know?
Yeah, we are making progress in that direction.
Tremendous progress has been made already. I remember when I got gestational diabetes, which was in 1984 when I was pregnant with Samantha, the doctor in Burlington said to me just absolutely flat out, 50 years ago, you and your child would both die.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
And that was absolutely the brutal truth, because with these kind of blood sugars and you're 6 months pregnant, there would be no way to keep them from escalating, except that you stop eating, which is not very good for your child.
Obviously, yeah.
So now the fact that not only is there treatment, but delivery was fine, she was fine, she had no trace of diabetes, was like kind of a miracle.
Terrific. Yeah.
So I know that a lot of work is being done, but it is things like the Walktoberfest. Now, tell everyone, how does the Walktoberfest work? Well, where does the money come from?
Okay, the way Walktoberfest works is the money comes from people like yourselves, people that are out there in the community that have a desire to make a difference in the lives of the more than 28,000 people with diabetes. And the way the event works is you register over the phone or by mail. There's no cost for registration. And in fact, if I may just bend down here for a moment, for a limited time, we're going to have these terrific mugs available, and they're travel mugs, and anyone that registers before September 1st is going to receive one of these mugs. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a good way for us to say thank you to the people for making a commitment to the American Diabetes Association. I'll just leave that there.
So the walks, are the walks all the same length?
Well, yeah, we our goal is to have each walk be about 8 miles. We like to have it so not only is it something that people will enjoy for the entertainment aspects, but also something to give them a good workout.
Good.
You know, we are constantly advocating exercise, and a great form of exercise is walking.
Okay, so back to the money part. The money
Okay.
comes from people who
Right,
are walking,
exactly.
right?
What we do is we ask people to have their friends and their neighbors sponsor them. And what the people do is they ask their friends and neighbors for support, whether it be make a pledge per mile of, say, $10, or whether it be a flat amount of perhaps $100 to go towards, to the American Diabetes Association. And we're going to have prizes available for the people that raise different levels. And we also have team prizes available. We like to encourage people to walk as teams. It's a good opportunity for people to get out. Obviously it's more fun if you got a friend to do it with you.
Absolutely.
And it's much more fun if you got 20 friends to do it with you.
Yes.
So,
and much more fun for us too.
yeah, absolutely.
Bring all your friends.
Yeah, and we encourage people to register as teams. It's a good way to build company morale. It's also a good way for the company itself to make a difference in their
Absolutely.
community. Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to have for people for our top fundraisers, we're asking that people raise a minimum of $50. But last year we had one woman that raised over $4,000 on her own.
Wow.
Yeah, and as a result, we were so happy with the effort that she made. AAA agreed to donate an all-expense paid weekend in Montreal.
That was
for
very
what
nice.
she had done for us. Yeah, and we're working on something again this year for our top fundraiser in the state.
That's a tremendous amount of money. That means she got like $500 a mile for walking.
Absolutely.
Or, the equivalent there.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and for our top fundraisers, we're going to have for top fundraisers on in our team category, we're going to have sweatshirts for the walkers. We'll also have, for anyone that raises over $250, a real nice golf shirt, similar to the one that I have on, with the Walktoberfest logo.
That's nice.
And another great incentive for people, I'm gonna bend over again to grab something I brought with me.
Okay.
The Vermont Teddy Bear Association has donated bears.
Good for them.
For the event, yeah. And we're going to be awarding Vermont Teddy Bears. This is a 16-inch bear. We're going to be giving those to people in our leadership category, is what we call it. And the person individually that raises the most money is going to receive a bear.
That's wonderful.
The person that is the captain of a team that raises the most money statewide will also receive a bear. The person that has the highest pledge average for their team will receive a bear, and also the captain of the team with the most walkers. Last year we had one team down in Rutland that had close to 50 walkers, and we awarded them with the bear as our way of saying thank you.
That's very nice.
So that's just another incentive for people to come out and join us.
All these incentives help.
It's nice to think that that people are going to come out just to help us with this terrific cause. But we like to give them something as well.
Yes, well, it's a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely.
Energy is energy. They're giving their energy, and so you get something
like to
back.
give them something in return.
Because I think one of the things that I sort of knew, but was amazed to hear when I went to the Vermont Diabetes Association meeting in Killington last summer, was to hear was it Dr. Clark he stepped down last year. Anyway, he spoke at the meeting, and I can't remember, but he said, diabetes is another one of the diseases in the country that is as stress-related. It isn't just about eating Hershey bars and hot fudge sundaes, it's also about stress.
Absolutely.
And that was a terrific reminder to me, because it seems that in this society, so many diseases are stress-related. I know for myself, when diabetes came back to me after it went away because it was gestational, and then 4 years later, my brother's house burned, and he and his wife and 5 children came to live with me. And it was during that period that my blood sugars began to shoot sky high. And fortunately, because of having the gestational diabetes, I recognized the symptoms, and I went and had my blood sugar checked, because I recognized the dry mouth and the wanting to drink all the time and going to the bathroom all the time. So I was able to spot it. But it is a disease that is tremendously connected to stress. You can be eating fine, walking, taking care of your blood sugars, keeping, 100, 120, whatever, and have something stressful happen and be looking at 350 before you know it. So this walking is good. All of this stuff is good that has to do with helping to find a cure for diabetes. Now, Brendan is the coordinator for the whole state. And of course, as we said before, you're on the road all the time, everywhere.
Absolutely.
But here in Middlebury, as I said before, I'm the chairperson, but we have some terrific committee members, and the 2 who are just knocking their socks off and doing tremendous amount of work, getting sponsors and also getting registration, are Beth Burnham and Kelly Dragon, both of whom work at Co-op Fire Insurance and can be reached there. They have a lot of registration packets. I also do too. But they have got terrific stuff. They had a little piece in the Addison Independent. I know they've sent out letters to the different businesses. So they are really making a difference in this area. And I trust that everybody else is all over the state. But let's talk a little bit more about what is entailed with such. Okay, so we got people registered, we get teams, they get money pledged. So then what do?
Well, then they show up October 1st. And on October 1st, we're going to have close to 200 walkers here in Middlebury. And we'll be leaving from Middlebury College, the Arts Center, right next to the field house, the new Arts Center.
Oh, yes. Well, they're going to have the Autumn Fest just before that.
Right. And then from there, we're going to take a walk through Middlebury. It's going to be an 8-mile walk during peak foliage season. And
pretty nice.
Yeah, we're going to have 3 rest stops along the way. And at those rest stops, we'll have food for people, food like just basically healthy food for people at each of the rest stops.
Pizza and French fries.
Yeah, and then we'll have a support vehicle on the route. A lot of times we like to get limousines for people so that they can ride back in style if they get tired.
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we had a vintage 1967 Mustang.
Oh, wow.
That one of our board members brought out, and people got to take rides in that.
That's nice.
So when people complete the 8-mile route, they're going to return to Middlebury College, and we'll have lunch waiting for them.
That's terrific.
Yeah, and it's really, we really take care of people when they come out and raise money for the American Diabetes
So the walks start at 9 o'clock. But people should be there between 8 and 8:30.
Yeah, we'd like to ask.
We're
going to have registration starting at 8 o'clock from 8 until 9, and then the walkers will leave promptly at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. So now we're going to have a little warm up.
Yeah, we're going to have we'll have an aerobics instructor there, helping the people stretch, and we'll also have something I failed to mention when they return. We're going to have entertainment as well. We're going to have perhaps a couple bands to come out and play for us.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, there's no time limit. You don't have to do the 8 miles in 2 hours, or you take your time. If you have to stop, that's what the rest stops are for.
Yeah.
What about if people can't complete it? Is there a way? Well, you said there's a vehicle cruising around to check up on people, right?
Yeah, we will have support there. We also have communication support. We want to make sure that we're in touch with all of our walkers while they're out there on the course, and we can just keep an eye on them.
Excellent.
Just to make sure that everything's safe.
And hopefully, by October 1st, it won't be quite as warm as it's been, right?
Yeah. Well, we've
I'm
been.
really glad you don't have this walk in the middle of August.
Last year, that weekend, we were very fortunate. It was not too cold, and we actually had the nice weather hold out for us until about 3 o'clock. And then it started to get a little dreary. But we've had excellent luck with the weather. And there's nothing like Vermont in the fall. I'm sure you know that.
That's true. That's true. That's why so many of us like to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it sounds like things are moving ahead. You've got different promotional stuff going. You've got things organized in the various towns. And now, in terms of... Well, I know that you just started this last year. You took over kind of in the middle last year for last year's, which I was working on, but had to be away that weekend, so I didn't walk in it. How do I ask you this question? Well, I want to ask it. Is you're working for the American Diabetes for the Vermont Diabetes Association. Is that something that you feel a commitment to?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
is this something that is there diabetes in your family? I
Yeah.
have wondered. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have two. One of my grandmothers has diabetes, and also my aunt. So it's something. In fact, my aunt's has lost her vision because of neuropathy.
Oh, I'm very sorry. to
Yeah,
hear
or excuse me, retinopathy.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's something that's important to me. You know,
Yes.
when I see what she's suffered, my aunt especially, and I know that with the help of dedicated people across
Yes.
the nation, with the help of more than 1 million volunteers nationwide, we can find a cure for this
Well,
disease.
because I think so many people take it for granted. I know when my husband's mother was first diagnosed, and of course she just never bothered to go to the doctor until, she had these maroon feet
Yeah,
that she could hardly
absolutely.
walk on. And it was, my mother had sugar, my aunt had sugar, everybody had sugar,
yeah,
so what's the big
it's
deal?
more than just that.
Yeah,
and
but
I
it
think
has
a lot
been
of people
treated for
don't.
so long, like, you would hear older people say, yeah, I have a touch of sugar, as they ate 3 pieces of apple pie,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
And I think now, and I was reading something in one of the diabetes forecasts or something about how diabetes was first named in Greek times, diabetes, passing through, because one goes to the bathroom so much
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it was named for. But then that initially the only way to deal with it was starvation, just simply not to eat.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way because you can
Absolutely.
eat, and you can even cheat now and then.
Well, we don't
As
wanna-
we all know.
Let's not promote
We
that.
don't promote that, but we do know that at Christmas sometimes there is a little something. But, basically, I know for myself that probably getting diabetes has saved my life in a way, because I quit smoking. I had already quit drinking, but it really makes you give up those things that you're supposed to, and you find
Yeah.
yourself eating a very healthy diet because you're eating primarily what the heart people say, what everybody else says, which is fruit and vegetables and grains and not much fatty meat or anything. So it promotes a healthy diet. And so, from that point of view, I think, gee, it's not such a bad thing, because it certainly caught my attention.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's a pain because you're out and people say, come on, would you like to go out to dinner? And you didn't bring any insulin with you. And you
Yeah.
go,
I think what's difficult for people to understand often is that diabetes is a killer. And
Yes,
whether
it is. Yes, it is.
it's not a disease that is often attributed to a person's death, but the
No.
complications usually do lead to death. Heart disease is a complication
well,
of
that's it. My
diabetes.
mother-in-law died of a
Yeah.
heart attack at 62
Sure.
because of diabetic complications.
Kidney disease,
Right.
neuropathy, which is amputation, blindness.
Yeah.
Those are just a couple of the complications.
Yes.
A lot of people, for example, a very recent an example is Jerry Garcia, who was with the
Yes,
Grateful
I
Dead. It was attributed to a heart attack that killed him, but the truth of the matter was it was his diabetes that killed him.
Diabetes, right.
And
it
I don't
lowered
think,
everything.
yeah, I don't think enough people understand that.
Wow.
Because it is a disease that kills more than 150,000 people annually.
Well, then it takes a lot of people.
Here in the state, it's going to more than 3,000 people have died this year from the disease.
Well, and the truth of it is, it's a disease that can be controlled. Ask
Absolutely.
me, I know, I have it. And so do many people that I know, but it can be controlled. So once again, it's October 1st, 9 a.m., the Middlebury Walktoberfest. They'll be meeting at the new art center at the college. It doesn't cost anything to register, but you do want to get people to pledge money for you to walk, and that money is going to go to diabetes research and advocacy research. What was the third one?
And education.
Thank you. And education. Something that we can all use more of is knowing about something.
And remember that if you register before September 1st, we'll be mailing you one of these terrific mugs.
And there's the number to call. And in Middlebury, if you don't get it, that number, you can call Beth or Kelly at Co-op Fire Insurance, or you can call me. And we'll look forward to seeing you there, because I'll be there, and I hope that lots of other people will be too. Brendan, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
It helps always, not only to inform people about the Walktoberfest, but just to make them more aware of diabetes.
Absolutely.
And I'll look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty, on to book reviews. I have some interesting ones this time, I must say. Which I will go through Actually, one of the ones that really caught my eye is the one, wherever you go, there you are, because it's oh so true. You know how I'm always talking about be here now and Ram Dass was right and all that? Well, this is proof of it. But because I like it so much, I'm going to do it last. Sort of like, you know, saving the best for last. But that doesn't mean necessarily that the worst is first, but does it? No. The first one is the one that came first, which is called In the House of the Moon by Jason Elias and Catherine Ketchum. It is published by Warner Books. Time Warner, ever since they published The Celestine Prophecy, have become the metaphysical heavyweights, I must say. And they have indeed, I think they have here, was it this one? That had, or one of the other ones that has a blurb from good old Mr. Redfield, the author of The Celestine Prophecy. But this has lots of wonderful stuff. It is being praised highly because it is reclaiming the feminine spirit in healing. And I will give you some of the chapter titles so that you can see. Well, first of all, okay, it's divided into parts, one of which is the lost keys. The second is the meaning of heaven and earth. The third is the seasons of life. One of the nice things that it has some wonderful directories. It has a dictionary of herbs with a description of several important herbs, such as black cohosh, chasteberry, which I had never heard of, but it's also known as monk's pepper, which I haven't heard of either. But it talked about Demeter, who, as we know, is the Greek goddess who evokes of the harvest. But then it talks about dandelion and dong quai and echinacea. But then it also gives you a body with the Chinese acupressure points on it, which I will show here. And then after that gives you a very thorough description of what the different ones are for and what they might be about, like this one in the middle of the back and what's going on with the feet over here. So I thought that was a very good reason in itself just to be in touch with the book. And then it recommends good books like Acupuncture for Beginners with plain talk and traditional and so forth and so on. And a title which really caught my eye, which is called The Web That Has No Weaver, which I thought was interesting. But I want to read just a little bit from the prelude of this book, because there was, if I can find the page that I was looking at earlier, because it really spoke to me. First of all, I want to quote from a poem of Lao Tzu speaking about Tai Chi and Aikido, in which he says, he relates it to the power of water, the soft power of water, which is fluid and yielding, but over time is capable of wearing down even the highest of mountains. Nothing in this world, he says, is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. And this also has to do with feminine energy, which is soft and yielding, but also can wear anything down if you want to. So, in this book, he speaks about how many years he spent researching this book, and he says this book seeks to honor the cyclic, sacred nature of the female experience, offering insights and suggestions for strengthening our connections with the world of mind and soul. These lessons are culled from female experience, but they are not for women alone. Men can also learn how to reclaim the healing wisdom of the female spirit and use it to create wholeness in their lives. When male and female combine, counsels the I Ching, all things achieve harmony. And I believe this is true. There are some beautiful, lovely things in here, and I think it would be excellent to read them. Some things that I say myself: celebrate the darkness. You know, we always hear so much about the light as if the darkness were bad. Yet we are born in darkness. We leave and we come and go through the dark tunnel. And if there were not dark, how would we ever know when it was light? And one of the things it says is, teach your daughter not to fear the dark, but to appreciate its beauty. Tell her about the insights and experiences that have come to you in the dark. take walks with her on moonless nights, and teach her how to see in the dark. And I love this whole section on mother gifts and coming from child to woman because, you know, my daughter is 11 years old. She will soon be coming to womanhood, and I want to do something ritualistic and lovely with her to celebrate that. And this book has some good suggestions on it. So that's In the House of the Moon, a lovely book. And sort of in line with that, we'll look at this. 5 minutes of massage, quick and simple exercises to reduce tension and stress. On the back it says, think you're too busy to enjoy a massage? Not anymore. If you have 5 minutes, you have enough time to rejuvenate your body and mind naturally with short, simple self-massage sequences that you can do even while traveling. It's published by Sterling Publishing and written by Robert, with the accent aigu over the E, I would have to say Robert Tay. Again, I like some of the headings because it really, one of them is keeping a level head, and that's all about stuff you can do with your mouth and jaw and forehead and eyes, a weight off our shoulders, hanging loose the arms and hands, back by popular demand, and part of that is getting things off your chest. Alive and kicking and doubling the pleasure. Now, getting things off your chest, I thought was a good one, because she talks about how important the heart and lungs are housed in the chest. And so, therefore, tension can cause muscles to tighten in the shoulders, upper back, and ribs, and that will restrict breathing. So she gives an exercise using the fingers of both hands to work this whole chest area, which I have felt like doing with all this bronchial tightness too, I'll tell you. And then a real belly fold, the abdomen, working with the abdomen and stimulating power points and so forth. So this is a good book. It's not expensive. It's like $12.95. It's a lot of pictures. And if you are someone for whom tension is a problem, or headaches, or eye strain, or whatever, and you can't get to your nearest masseuse or masseur, this is a good way to do some temporary relief until you can get there. Now this book, Barbara Marx Hubbard, The Revelation, I looked at it last month, I think, and then I went back and started reading it. And I don't know a lot about Barbara Marx Hubbard, I must admit. Although from the way that she is spoken of here, she is a person, let's see, it says that Barbara Marx Hubbard, who R. Buckminster Fuller called the best informed human now alive regarding futurism. Well, that's a pretty strong recommendation, and it says she's a world-renowned futurist, speaker, citizen diplomat, social architect, and prophetic politician. Her name was placed in nomination for the vice presidency of the United States in 1984, and she's the founder of the Center for Conscious Evolution. Now, when I think of futurists, I think of Alvin Toffler and Buckminster Fuller and people like that. But Barbara Marx Hubbard, I have to say, is not someone whose name was familiar to me. But it says she's carrying forth the ecstatic philosophy of Teilhard de Chardin and provides an answer to the question, what is man that thou art mindful of him? In this book, she goes through the book of Revelations, which I have always thought was one of the most intense writings ever was. I mean, when people start talking about metaphysical books and mystical writings, I have said to them in the past, you don't really have to look in other cultures. Look in the book of Revelations, and that's as mystical and strange as anything that you can discover, because there are so many metaphors and so many strange parables within it. And I picked this one to kind of look at a little bit tonight, which is from Revelations 12, verses 1 and 2. And there appeared, and of course you'll see why when I read it, and there appeared a great wondrous sign in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So you have to think 12 stars and the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And is there some sort of correlation here? And she, being with child, cried out, travailing in birth and in pain to be delivered. And so she says the first revelation to John was the Son of Man, and this wondrous sign is the daughter of man, the feminine aspect of the Christ potential, the other half of the divinity within us all. Each person has a Christ within. It is neither masculine nor feminine. It is whole. And within the wholeness, the masculine and feminine are synthesized to make a new pattern greater than the sum of its parts. The woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, is the feminine aspect of God, which will rise again as it always does when a quantum transformation is at hand. The feminine aspect of God is pregnant with all of life, for it loves life and offers itself as a perfect receptacle for the growth of light. At this time, as Mary was pregnant with Jesus, who carried the template for the future human, this woman is pregnant with the natural Christ, who should be born after the tribulations, who will never know physical death and never experience the illusion of the separation from God. So this is she had some pretty intense things to say, and it's like this all through the book. I was also interested to see that, of course, the next quotation is that about the great red dragon with the 7 heads and the 10 horns and the 7 crowns upon his head. And Revelations gets pretty violent, It talks a lot about wonderful, beautiful things like the city of jasper and crystal and so forth, but then it also talks about terrible things to come. And it's a book that I think will take you a long time to read. I have read through it now, but I know I will spend a lot of time looking at different things because, as I said, I've always been fascinated by the book of Revelations and felt that there was a tremendous amount there that was being missed in terms of if you really want to see what the quote-unquote New Age is all about. There are a lot of answers to be found there, and that in seeking that Christ consciousness, which is really the Aquarian way, the divinity within. It's the age that we're coming to is true Christ consciousness, which is recognizing yourself as the part of God that you are. And she says here, once you can do that, the problems you're facing will not exist because you will always know you're about God's business. And now the one that I think is really a book to be read. Wherever you go, there you are. Mindful Meditation in Everyday Life. The book is by John Kabat-Zinn, and it's published by Hyperion Books. And it's recommended by everyone you can think of, from Dean Ornish, who wrote the very well thought of book on reversing heart disease, to Norman Lear, to Jack Kornfeld, to a man named Roger Walsh, who wrote The Spirit of Shamanism. And it's given a lot of good stuff. And he was also featured in Bill Moyer's Healing in the Mind. There are some beautiful chapter headings, and I want to say a little bit about him. He's the founder and director of the Stress Reduction Clinic at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, and associate professor of medicine in the Division of Preventative and Behavioral Medicine. His clinic was featured in The Healing in the Mind, and his major research interests include mind-body interactions for healing, clinical applications of mindfulness meditation for people with chronic pain and stress-related divorces, and the societal applications of mindfulness. And his chapter headings are as interesting as some of the rest. He goes, Part 1 is the bloom of the present moment. Don't you love it? Part 2, the heart of practice. And Part 3, in the spirit of mindfulness. And of course, when I looked at that, I immediately had to look at the chapter. How do you entitle a chapter? Cleaning the stove while listening to Bobby McFerrin. Listening to Bobby McFerrin has got to be one of the great things to do in the world anyway. And he speaks about how he can lose himself cleaning the kitchen stove, and he tries to make it play. One Saturday morning, a tape by Bobby McFerrin was playing in the cassette player, so the cleaning became dancing, the incantation sounds and rhythms and the movements of my body merging and blending, and it all worked together. One big dance of presence, a celebration of now resulting in a clean stove. What a deal. But the one little piece that I wanted to read, which I was looking at this morning, is a little section called Voluntary Simplicity. And I guess it came home to me, the reason that anything comes home to us, because it's what we need in our own lives. The impulse frequently arises in me to squeeze another this or that into that moment. Just this phone call, just stopping off here on my way to there, because it's something I do all the time, which is why I'm usually late everywhere I go, because I did make that one phone call or answer that one phone call or try to put the roast in the oven or the stew on the stove or whatever before I left. And he says, I've learned to identify this impulse and mistrust it. I work hard at saying no to it. It would have me eat breakfast with my eyes reading for the 100th time the dietary contents on the cereal box, or the newspaper, or the LL Bean catalog, or whatever. I like to practice voluntary simplicity to make sure nourishment comes at a deep level. And he says for him it involves intentionally doing only one thing at a time, something that's very hard for me to do. I'm always trying to watch TV and talk on the phone and read, and so that I don't, and maybe play cards at the same time and knit so that I don't waste any time. But slowing down everything is a big part of choosing simplicity. Telling my mind and body to stay put with my daughter rather than answering the phone, or just keeping my life simple. And so, as Thoreau said in Walden, simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. Let your matters be 2 or 3, and not 100 or 1,000. Instead of 1,000,000, count half a dozen. In the midst of this chopping sea of civilized life, such are the clouds and storms and quicksands, and the 1,001 items to be allowed for that a man has to live if he would not founder and go to the bottom. Simplify, simplify, simplify. And I have to say, I agree with it. And I also agree with the fact of wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are. Now, this man also wrote Full Catastrophe Living, which I have not read, and he refers to in the beginning, saying that, in the prelude, saying that he tried to make the path of mindfulness accessible to mainstream Americans so that it would not feel Buddhist or mystical. So I guess that's probably a pretty good book, too. But I really like this one. Wherever you go, there you are, because ain't it the truth? Now, I'm going to take a sip of water because I can feel this tickle in my chest coming, and I don't want to cough again. So far, the cough suppressant seems to have worked pretty well. But I do want to talk about what's coming up over the next few weeks. So I'm referred to my cheat sheet, which is the computer printout of all the aspects. Starting with, as I said, the Sun went into Virgo today, but was completely eclipsed by the Moon Saturn opposition, which is peaking even as we speak. Tomorrow is a much better day. Friday evening is the new moon in Virgo, which occurs at 11:31 p.m. Saturday's nice. Sunday is iffy. Monday is iffy. Tuesday's okay. Wednesday, the 30th, the Sun squares Virgo. But to give you the planetary directions, on Monday the 28th, Mercury enters Libra, where it's going to be for a long time, because it goes direct in late September, and then goes retrograde in late September, and then direct in October, still in Libra the whole time. So it stays in Libra from Tuesday through early November. So those born in Gemini and Virgo, who are ruled by Mercury, all of this Libra action is meant to give you some pretty powerful stimulus to think about money, to think about doing things with your energy, to think about making changes, to keep you going. So this Mercury in Libra also for Gemini and Virgo, remember that it's going to tune you in more to partnerships. And for Libras, having Mercury come in, of course, sharpens your wits. But also the fact that it's going to be retrograde and then go direct again means that over the next couple of months, you're going to be given a lot of different viewpoints on some issues that are going on, particularly within yourself, but also within your spiritual self and your long-term plans. So if there are things you think you want to leap into between now and the 22nd of September, maybe you ought to think twice about that, because while Mercury's retrograde, it's going to give you a different point of view on it, and you may not want to make these decisions until late October. Next big step is the 7th of September, Mars, which has been in Libra, pops into Scorpio, always a place where it's very powerful. Because before the discovery of Pluto, Mars was the ruler of Scorpio and was considered in its night home there. So once Mars goes into Scorpio, of course, things get intense, especially for those born in Aries and Scorpio, but we all feel some of it. On the 8th of September is the full moon in Virgo and Pisces, immediately followed by a Venus-Saturn opposition on the 9th. So on Friday, the 8th of September, if you have big plans, my advice to you is go to bed early and steer clear of them. That weekend, however, is excellent, of the 10th, and there are good aspects until we hit September 14th and the annual opposition of the Sun and Saturn. This is the last time it will occur in Virgo and Pisces, because by this time next year, Saturn will be in Aries. On September 16th, good news. Venus moves into Libra for 3 weeks, and since Venus is the ruler of Libra, it's very comfortable at home. This is good for Libras, it's good for relationships, it's good for getting your balance back, and it ushers in a rather positive time. Other than that, Mercury turns retrograde on the 22nd of September, and of course the Sun moves into Libra on the 23rd. I do want to mention that there will be, on Friday, September 8th, a full moon meeting at Conant Square in Brandon. If you want to attend and haven't been before, please call me at 247-3656 to find out more about it. It happens at 7:30, and it runs for about an hour. I just want to look quickly at whatever's in Ever-Changing. There will be a new issue of this coming out soon. But as to what might be going on over the next few days. At the Trillium Center in Charlotte for the next week is a Vermont Summer Intensive on Myth, Magic, and Mystery, which may already be too late, but maybe not. And then there's a Reiki training on the 25th and 26th. That's being done at the Lightgate Center in, at the Reiki Education Institute. The number is 434-6169. September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, which of course is Labor Day weekend, at the Lightgate Center in Thetford, a man named Jonathan Besson is doing a fire walk. Whew. Inspiration and fire walk and breath work workshop. You will walk across a bed of hot coals. People who I have known have done this, said it has changed their life, not to mention their foot size. Oh, shoe size, never mind. Sometimes I can't help having a lighthearted look at the world, and it's probably what's kept me from ever being a devotee of a great guru, because there's something in me that always goes, just as I'm about to go, oh, this is really wonderful. This little voice inside me goes, but consider the other side. And so there I go. So consider your shoe size. This is Labor Day weekend, as I said. 8th and 9th, more Reiki training. And the 10th, there's an herbal aromatherapy class with Jane Smolnick. Call 885-5500. And on the 16th and 23rd at the Spirit Dancer Bookstore in Burlington, Abby Bassett, who you may have read some of her stuff in Ever-Changing, is doing an introduction to horoscope analysis. So you might want to call the bookstore if you're interested in that. And then the 23rd and 24th, there's the annual Vermont Massage Conference Retreat at the Cooper Hill Lodge in Dover. Anyway, that's really, and of course ongoing stuff is yoga training at the Green Mountain School of Yoga. That's Prem Prakash, who was a guest on our show last October. No, I think it was the Virgo show last year, because Virgo is also about grounding. And there's meetings on Wednesdays at the Lightgate Center called Beyond the Known, where you can talk about just about anything from crop circles to Hopi prophecies. And speaking of that, that's something I'd really like to get going in the Middlebury area, or Brandon if people are interested. It would be nice to just get together periodically, even if it was just once a month, to talk about metaphysical subjects. You know, I sit here and talk about them on the show, but that's me talking to you, at you, whatever. And it would be nice to have some ongoing shared experiences. So that's something I'm very open to. You know, my number is 247-3656, or you can write to me at Box 2070, Arnold Hollow Road in Brandon, 05733. You know, the number's in the Addison, and address is in the Addison all the time. But I just think that it would be nice. I think one of the things that happens with metaphysics is sometimes we feel very isolated from each other on our spiritual quests. And being involved in big groups is not always work, but it's nice to have 5 or 6 or even 10 people together talking about some of the spiritual things that are meaningful to them. So I'm thinking about a discussion group would be nice, and if someone out there thinks it's nice too, that would be great. Now, we're coming to the last few minutes of the show. In my rushing out of the house, I did not bring a new poem I just finished, so we won't have one on this show, will we? We'll do the fall one in Libra for the fall equinox, and then save this one for Scorpio. But I have to say that it has been this time of Leo. It's always intense for me because Leo rules my 12th house, my house of karma, and I have the moon there. But it has been a time of looking at a lot of different things, not the least of which have been illness. I mean, not only is my mother still ill, but my daughter was ill, and I've had this cough, and it's like that moment in the midst of Leo power and strength and heart of looking at mortality. And maybe that's why Leo flows into Virgo, because here's Leo with its excesses, and it's ruled by the sun, and it's got tons of energy, and it's all that bright stuff. Then being kind of funneled down into Virgo to say, well, yes, you have all this, but don't take it for granted. You have to look at it. You have to take the Virgo orderliness and energy and say, okay, this fits here, but why? Will it fit equally well this way? What are the meanings that are here? And perhaps that is part of what Virgo's all about. Not to look at the details for the sake of the details, but to look at the details, to channel the energy more successfully. And that could well be part of it. In the meantime, I will look forward to seeing you next month for the Libra show, which will be taking place close to the fall equinox of September 23rd. You know, the fall equinox is a wonderful time. They happen spring and fall, where the days and nights are of equal length. And of course, you know what that means when it's the fall one. It means that from then on the days get shorter. Phooey. Of course, they've been doing that for a while, but the equinox is always proof of it. So I will look forward to seeing you on the Libra show, when our focus will be on Libra issues such as partnership, beauty, all the things that are important to Libras. Until then, keep your Virgo orderliness. Don't be afraid to look under the rug and see what's there. And don't be afraid to scrub out the corners. You may be amazed at what you find. Happy Virgo times, and I'll look forward to seeing you again in a month. Until then, bye-bye.